What is going on, YouTube world? Steve, Dave, Insert Revolution podcast, episode number 41. Getting going a little late here, that's all right. Technical issues again, and it's warm out. So I'm hoping no internet issues, but we lost power about would have been about 3 hours ago now, 2:45, 3, because it's been so windy out. It's been 30, 35 mile an hour gusts. So I came back from practicing with Naomi, and clock for the microwave out, stove out. I go upstairs, the one in the bedroom blinking, and I'm like, okay, why is this? And I'm like, well, trees on power lines. So yippee. But I think it's dying down a little. So just if that happens, that's going to be the reason why. I'm hoping no choppiness tonight, so we can get all that garbo out of the way, because it seems like that's been a StreamYard thing. It's not just relegated to us. So I'm hoping that's ironed itself out.
Yeah, the only difference is if we shut down early because of it, we won't be up until 1 o'clock afterwards.
That is true.
And it's promptly at 8:05 Eastern time ish. You forgot the ish.
It's like when that Braves game goes into extra innings. Your next program, your chips or your Sharknado 7, guess what? Not going to start at 8:05 Eastern time on the button.
We've never started on time. Why would we start now?
This is true.
I mean, come on. You guys have accepted the fact that this is a known reality. And either, I guess you accept it or don't. I mean, that's the two options, right?
Accept it or accept it. Accept it or deal with it.
There you go. Interesting day to say the least. I know your week's been crap.
Oh.
My week's been crap. May sucks. It never fails for me, especially, since I lead a team and it's coming up at the end of the month. And of course, Monday's a holiday. Still doesn't mean that my team doesn't kind of stay on call in the event that they need to. But they're trying to throw so much crap, and literally it's crap, to meet numbers and everything else. And I just, yesterday, if I could have played in traffic, well, I could have played in traffic, but if I really wanted to go play in traffic, yesterday was a prime example of a good idea. Today, not as bad, other than the fact that we had a major system issue that is probably going to cause one of my people to redo a job that she spent like 2 hours on. And that sucks because of system glitches. And that I hate that from that standpoint, because she didn't get to take a lunch. She was working on it all day. And then we got the error. So I got it in front of the database folks and business architecture. And then I had to go to the PBX team and all this. It's like every time you turn around, it's like, oh, yeah, well, now we have to do this. Now we have to do that. Now we got to create a script in order to do this that has to go through ITSM and approvals. And it's like, shoot me now. I'm like, holy cow. I offered a workaround, and she was like, yeah, that may work, but I'm afraid of going back and potentially having to redo it anyways. I'm like, well, here's the thing. Here we are. It's 7:17 Central Standard Time. Most of the folks on the DB side and the PBX team are all on the East Coast. who would be able to approve said script. I was like, so guess what? You're probably going to have to redo it anyways. And that's never a fun conversation to have because that just sucks.
No, that's I obviously don't know anything about any of that stuff, but at the same time, I know about redoing shit, and then especially after you spend a heap of time, and then something screws up, and you're like, oh, so now this, now we're basically back to square one. Okay.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, like I said, it's a big deal. 200, I think it's 200 something locations. Just big deal. A lot of contract value. It just, it's one of those in which it's taken us 4 days to get the approvals to even process it because it required an exception, which had to go through multiple channels because, that's just, let's make things complicated, right? People chatting me, people chatting my employee, what's the deal? What's going on? Why hadn't this been done? And it's like, folks, and this, of course, started yesterday, but it's like, it's the 24th. You do realize that there are still 7 days left in this month, right? Oh, well, we have a meeting with the CEO. And I'm like, seriously? All you have to do is tell her, hey, look, they're there. We're working on exception approvals. Chances of being booked for the month are 99.9%. To me, that should be sufficient. Does it really matter if you say, yeah, they're booked or they're still pending, but they're going to make it in for the month? I mean, is there really a difference? No. Oh, that's right. I forget. Executive leadership is probably going to go on vacation in the next couple of days, and they don't want to have to worry about it. I forgot. Anyways, I'm off my soapbox and griping and complaining about work crap. This is my getaway from that, but that's the crap I've been dealing with for the last 2 days. Just if I have another day like that tomorrow, I wish I could actually take vacation, but since it's the end of the month, that's not allowed because of what we do.
Well, if you want to take a vacation, if you could go anywhere in the world, would you choose to go to maybe Toronto, Canada, somewhere up that way?
No.
Well, you know what? I'll bring Toronto, Canada to you.
Do we have to?
I was going to say you don't have to. I'm not in Toronto, Canada, so I can't help you either.
A stone's throw.
Yeah, as I was going to say, it's like, so you're from Minneapolis, Minnesota, Dave. Is that right?
Well, that's a little different.
Yeah, exactly. It's only a 40-minute train ride, Dave. It takes about 25 to 30 minutes. It's not a stone's throw.
Well,
it's a bit of a hike.
4-hour car drive to Minneapolis and a 20-minute train ride. That's
Yeah, but you're in Ely. You're a 4-hour ride from civilization in general. Like in any direction. True. Pick a direction, it's still not there.
Center of the earth.
That is true.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell people I'm from Dallas.
Yeah.
Most people know Dallas Fort Worth, so it's easy for me just to say I'm from Dallas. And then they of course, well, where specifically? Okay, I live in a town called Albury. Where's that? East of Denton. And that's where? Dallas.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Toronto usually works for most folks. They get that. But it creates, we in the greater Toronto area, which is their cop-out, it's like the greater Toronto area is a lot of things. It's like I'm in a 750,000 people suburb that's beside 150,000 people's city beside that. And we're still 35, 40 minutes away from the downtown core where there's like 3 million people.
Well, and that's like me. I mean, I'm over an hour away from downtown Dallas. So,
yeah.
But
so it's like I can get down there. Like it's one of those things, and I'm close. I have proximity to that train. Where if it is rush hour, it's 25 minutes, but it's 25 minutes where it's going nonstop. It's just like it's not a hop, skip, and a jump. I can't waltz over there on a whim.
Sure you can. Sure you can.
Yeah, that's the reason why I never. That's the reason why I never like. If I have business in Toronto, then I make all my business in Toronto for the day. It's like I'm not waltzing back over.
Before we get too far, Dave,
Sponsor. Tap into the Rocky.
anything from you this evening, Mr. Carlos, or are you tapping something later?
It's behind me in the mini fridge. I'm going to finish my secondary sponsor, Pepsi. We'll get to the primary one a little bit later on.
I'm waiting for Dave, but Dave not going to show anything? Or are we drinking Squirt again? Oh, nope. We got is that the cherry Pepsi?
Yeah, cherry Pepsi. Then I got some Barks root beer and a 20-ounce of regular Pepsi in the fridge.
Look at you.
Nothing wrong with it.
Welcome, Sanderson to Or. Seeing some folks that I usually see over with Carlos and
Yep.
other shows, allegedly.
Yep.
Thanks to Carlos for allowing us the opportunity to promote the show. It's always a pleasure. We always talk about jurors all the time. The only difference is normally we're like missing the link or whatever, but most people who know you know us, or who know us know you. So it kind of works out.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. It's one of those things where it's nice to mix it up a little bit. Bobby and I usually hang out. It's fun. It's basically, that's the Friday just hang out. It's like, yep, let's just hang out and chill for a bit. It's usually pretty good, especially now it's starting to warm up. I know that people are out there doing their thing. I was laughing though when Dave was talking about weather off the top. It's like, I think I'm still in the warmest of the three spots right now, because I did a quick scan over. It's like, yep. So I think it feels like 90 today if we translate it over to your parlance.
Yeah, I didn't even pay attention. I know we got a crap ton of rain this morning, and it's been raining freaking almost every day since last weekend. I think it started last Saturday in the evening, and it's rained almost every day except for I think one. So
yeah, it's extreme weather type of year. It's that time of year. Although I did laugh because I looked at the long-term forecast and I go, this week is a perfect microcosm of Southern Ontario in a nutshell. So we'll start off in the 90s over the weekend. We'll do all that. By Friday, it'll be 48. Mm-hmm. I was like, yep, why not? Yeah, let's do it.
Like, I was going to say, sounds like Minnesota.
It's like, let's do it.
At least as of late.
That's our low, I think, Thursday night into Friday is 26.
Yep.
Like, cool. Good.
And it's May. It's May.
It's rolling up on Memorial Day weekend, so it's like, okay, we can start shuffling that late winter, early spring temperature numerology to the background, and let's keep it at some sort of regulated normal temperature. I don't need to have the yo-yo of 85, then the next day it's 40.
Oh, you can't. Then you shouldn't come by these parts, Dave. That's always in play. Oh. I don't care what time of the year it is. Everything's in play. 90 in December, 10 degrees in July, whatever. Anything's possible.
Most years for the fishing opener, which was 2 weekends ago, it's snowing in some way, shape, or form. That there's either snow on the ground and it's super windy, or we just have a lot of flurries coming down and it's like 34 degrees out. It was like 78, which never happens. So I don't mind the warm weather. I like the build up. I can't go from 50 to like 85, and then you go back down to like 40 after like 3 or 4 days. And the humidity was when I said in the chat, it was the oppressive. If that's July, I'm happy. Okay, we get some humidity. I can go to the river, go to the lake, swim. I can't do that in May because it's still like the water temperature is 8 degrees.
Well, you can. It may just not be well advised to do so.
I need medical personnel on site in case of like some sort of shock jumping in there, or a tsunami, one of the others.
Love it.
Ay. So what's the topic for the evening?
how
Talking trades, right?
yeah, trading cards in the old trading card game. How prevalent is it? How easy do we find it? Because again, we're all mainly focused on specific players. Um, Obviously, with the one I got, the one trade I did, I was shocked that I made it and was able to make it pretty easily because I normally don't, because I'm Mr. Stickler and everybody wants to they value their stuff differently. I mean, comps or otherwise, they're going to look at, well, if I've had this for a while, or if I pulled something, it sort of holds a little more of that nostalgic value or that intrinsic value. So for most of us that are in here, that's the way we think. I just wanted to get some opinions on that. See if anybody, again, with the boom of the Instagram the last year and a half, where that's been, we found a lot of folks on there that we either converse or follow with. Um, I don't know, have we discussed trades with them? Has anybody in sort of like you don't have your inner circle, is that little, the circle out it from there? Anybody hear of trades there? Because we hear a lot about buying, a lot about trading money for cards. I mean, constantly. That's what you normally you're sitting there. You hear 5.2 million, 4.9 million, 3.85 million. You're hearing numbers for money, but again, you're not going to trade something probably for that Trout Super Proctor unless you're doing a Mantle 52. But on the lower end, we can still trade a lot. And I just wanted to know, in your collecting, I don't know, the blinders of your collecting viewing on any given platform, how often do you see that and do you experience it yourself?
To be honest with you, Dave, I'm really interested to see what the chat comes back with on this one. I know, Carlos, you specifically made mention that you wanted to be a part of this. Yep. So I'm interested to get your take on it, whichever route you decide to take, because I know you could take multiple facets. Mm-hmm. Me, I've always said this in the past. I'm not a big trader. It's I don't want to say it's complicated, but my experience from a trading perspective has always been long before this massive boom. Excuse the plane as it goes overhead. We're kind of in the flight path of 3 airports where we live, so it does get quite kind of interesting. But I've pretty much completed 2 trades in my entire life. And I'm not talking about back when I was a kid with your friends and, that there wasn't a concept of value. Yes, you had the Beckett type situation as a guide, but, like we've said, the Beckett was always more along the lines of a guide because a card's value is literally based on what somebody's willing to pay for it. It's all subjective in that case. So my trades have been minimal, and to the extent of where there was no use of Beckett, there was no use of comps, things along those lines. With today's prices, it would seem to me that trades could be a little bit more complicated because there's like multiple moving parts. You can look at comps. You can look at what you have into something. And Carlos and Dave, I'm really looking more towards maybe your feedback on this. Mm-hmm. But does it seem more that if you trade cards, it seems as though trading has a little bit higher, quote unquote, value almost. It's not based on comps. So it's like you can trade one card that's, let's say $10,000, but there's a possibility you could trade, say, 10K card for something that's potentially 12K.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll touch on that one a little bit because you're playing right into kind of the thought I had when you guys mentioned the topic. Because my experience with trading is that it's a bit of a dying art form. It's still out there. I'll still see some for sure, but it's gotten a lot more complicated for some of the reasons Steve outlined. But one of the things that I was paying attention to when I was watching a lot of the vlogs for the Dallas show is that with the market, quote unquote, correcting, a lot of folks are very hesitant to do straight cash deals. Mm-hmm. Now, That's not everybody. That's not across the board. Obviously, vlogs are a little sliver of a window. But in those vlogs, some of those guys are going after these bigger deals and trying to get these large cards going both ways, basically. So a lot of times it became in the negotiation, it's like a lot of times it's you'll do trades or do you want to do a cash trade deal? And then you start building different permutations. It's like, well, all right, these two cards and $500. Well, I don't really want those. Would you do these three cards and 1,000 or back and forth? And but so you're basically the cash actually becomes part of the trade in the sense of a comp. So it's cash, but it's cash to offset the difference between A and B. And then all of a sudden the comps matter again. But it plays back into kind of what I talked about in that video when I started alluding to, and I want to touch on it again later in a different video. But I started reintroducing the idea of like the comp is like a guide value. It's dynamic. It depends on the time that you're doing it. It's how much does somebody want it? What's happening? Are they starting to sell for more so the comp is moving up? Are they starting to shift down? And what you saw in Dallas was folks having that exact argument and recording it. The reason I like that is because you're actually seeing it happen in real time where literally the guy's like, well, I don't care what the last comp is. I have this much into it. I can do a better trade for you if you'd like to do it that way, and I can give you more value for it that way. But if you want to do straight in cash, this is what I need. So all of a sudden the trade became a tactic to be able to get the value in return to be like, okay, well, I'll trade you these cards and I have X into them. And a lot of times they would tell you too much information, which also I found very funny. But I've got X into it. So yeah, I can trade you these three, which value-wise are technically more than that. But since I've got less into it, I can make that deal work. Okay, great. Deal.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I was alluding to. As I've said, back in the day, at least from my perspective, things were a lot simpler, it seems. You know, you tried to make things fair on both sides, which you do see even to this day, although it could be based on perception, because, you're listening to these people say, well, I've got X into something type situation. And, in the chat today, I'm sitting there going, help me understand why that makes sense. If I'm a businessman, you don't usually talk costs. Costs are secret. You don't want to know how much profit you're making on something. But yet in today's market, you hear about it all the time. Oh, well, I only got such and such amount into it. I turned it around for, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, 10x or whatever the terminology is these days. So it's really interesting to see that dynamic change and the level of complexity that comes into it. Dave, I know for you, you've completed at least a couple trades over the last, we'll say last year, because I know of 2 specifically that seem to be fairly simple in a sense. I don't know what the basis was in coming up to an agreement type situation. I know you gave more cards for one of them.
Yep.
And the other one was almost equal, I think, as far as the number of cards that you sent compared to what you got. So it was fairly close. So from that perspective, as Carlos kind of mentioned, it is kind of like a dying art form, but at the same time, there's still opportunities there for them to transpire. For me, I'm always afraid that it's going to complicate things, and I'm either going to piss somebody off because I don't think the same way that they do or something along those lines, and potentially run somebody off for a potential big pickup. So me personally, I stay away from them. That's the way I've always been.
And I know at Ryan's show in, I want to say 2016, it wouldn't be a big deal, but by my standards at the time, it was a bigger deal. I traded that Elway. It was like an elite auto, like an 01 on card, like Timeless Threads or something. Auto numbered 100. And then I added, I think, 2 more cards, but I got a Bo Jackson Fabric of the Game auto, I think to 10 or to 25, and then Len Dawson, I think Fabric of the Game auto triple patch to 10. And it was a fairly simple deal. I mean, the stuff you when people do trades, most of the time they're giving up something they don't want to. It's not like you're just pulling out cards like, I don't care about this stuff. If you want to get something you really want, at some point in time, you have to give up something you really like. Not always, but a good majority of the time that happens. Watching like Carlos and stupid DC and his putting out the video links in we have our separate text, and he's just like pumping video links like to the Dallas show or to the Dallas show, and I'm just like, and people out there, if anybody stumbles across this, and if you do, God help you. Wiss Dells, just call it the Dells. That's what people up here call it. We're going to the Dells. We're not going to Wiss Dells. It's the Dells. But seeing like the footage there again, because you're always, it's the morbid curiosity. You just want to see what's going on in the hobby because there's no shows around, and again, there's enough chatter that we all want to see what the heck's going on. So you see some of the terminology there, the people flipping stuff, trading stuff. The one guy I've been watching, the one I sent I think this morning real early, I watched like 4 or 5 of his videos, and I don't want to say I like him, but I'll watch his stuff because he's on the lower end. It's not always like that 51 Bowman Mantle. What do you want for that? No, he's trying to get like a Dwayne Wade Topps Chrome rookie. I'm like, okay, that's something we can work with, and like the common plebeian collector.
Plebeian, really? All right, I'll roll with it. Please continue.
So, watching somebody like that, and he's dickering with people for like, what do you get to? There's something at some other show I just watched before coming on here. He was like trying to finagle a deal for like 4 Cristiano Ronaldo like Prism. I don't even know, 14, 15, somewhere in there, and like a Timmy Duncan Topps rookie. To get those, he come down from 200 to 180. So I mean, he's making that sale or that, but it's something we can all relate to. It's not something where you're throwing out 10 grand or I made an $8,000 or $80,000 purchase at a card show. We're not. Nobody in here is doing that. Allegedly.
But do we know?
But if a lot of the trading going on too, I mean, yeah, the cash becomes a part of it. That's almost like the sprinkles on top of the sundae. It's like, you want to get the deal done. Here's like 20. Here's a 50. What can we do just to get the deal done? And sometimes to cross the finish line, you got to use the cash. You really don't want to, because obviously you want to earmark that for something else instead of just a pot sweetener. But it seems like more so today, in today's age of trading, or at least the last 5 years or so, that's really been the deal sealer. Here, how about these 2 cards and 200 for those 2? Okay.
Yeah.
But the straight up trading, I will say it's more of a dying art. And with people, like you guys said, they have X amount into something. Well, nobody wants to come out a loser. I want to at least maintain my status quo. If I'm not going to get more, I don't want to get less. I'm just told. Or it's something that they value more so for other reasons, not because of what they've got into it, just because it's like, well, I really like the card. I pulled the card. I traded for it. I graded it myself, so now I know it's a 9 or a 10. That's got more value comparative to a comp or whatever recent sales you see on like a platform, or a social media type platform or something. So deals are to be had, but again, it takes a lot of negotiating, and it takes somebody else that has somewhat of an open mind to deal. You can't just sit there and have one guy that's a flipper and one guy that's a collector. It's not probably going to work out. If you get 2 sort of collector-minded people and you're making a deal for like us, we can probably come to a resolution. If it's a flipper and like a hardcore collector, it's more of a stalemate there. So,
Well, and I see Carlos's wheels spinning, so I know he's waited there with bated breath
Oh, I have accounted exactly what Dave said. Please continue.
with the retort.
Oh, yes.
What's interesting though is a lot of this also transfers though into the buying side. If you really think about it, the same type of mindset and philosophies transfer into the attempts to purchase cards, whether it be via eBay, whether it be through a dealer shop, whatever.
Yep.
And as we've always said, comps or value is all relative. And everybody can take certain bits of information and take it as if it's, gospel.
Mm-hmm.
A prime example, me trying to acquire 2 cards through an eBay seller. He gives me this bunch of BS as far as his pricing considerations on what he's willing to do. And I was like, I flat out told him, I was like, look, man, I'm going to be honest. I don't think we're going to be able to come to an agreement. We're way off. I'm like, I'm not following your justification. And lo and behold, they were put up on eBay, high starting price with the buy it now. They didn't sell. They've been relisted for now lower. So it's like, not saying that I'm looking for always the best deal. There's certain things in which you're willing to pony up the dough, so to speak. But the same type of thought process does also transfer into the buying side. So, Carlos, I know you have, like I said, I know you've been waiting. So,
Yep.
Have at it.
Sure. So 2 things. Let me touch on real quick the last thing Steve said, and then I'll get to what Dave was talking about. So the one of the problem, there's a million problems with comps, but let's just stick with one easy one. Just because it's straightforward. Comps are as much a product of circumstance as anything else. If you take something that's really common, it's easier to level it out. You can get rid of outliers. You take something super high, super low, you can kind of throw them out and be like, and find the middle, and usually you can settle in. But if it's something rarer and the right circumstances come together, then what is a comp? And I'll give a concrete example of something that happened this past weekend. I was tracking a card. It was a country of origin, Medano from 2001, 2002, patch card. Very nice card. I knew the seller had 2 of them. I've been keeping an eye on it for a while, and I had made a play before they put it up for auction. They wanted to go to auction, fair enough. I bid $436 for it, which is way more than I even wanted to, but I figured I'd blow the thing out of the water. I lost. I was the direct underbidder. Somebody was willing to go at least $441, if not higher. Now, why does this create a problem? In theory, that's a comp. On paper, that should be a comp because that was an open auction. Anybody could have bid. It was a 10-day auction, so it wasn't like this short thing. Plenty of people had the opportunity to see it. Plenty of people had the opportunity to bid on it. I bid on it, in fairness, basically. It was just, and if I had won it for $436, I'm paying $436. So everything's on the up and up. As far as I can tell, looking at it, doesn't look like there was any shield bidding activity. Nothing seems odd, other than the fact that somebody was willing to go super high. And I was an underbidder that was willing to go almost to that same spot. I don't know how much further they were willing to go. But here's the thing. A Mario Lemieux of the exact same card, because the guy had a set, so he put a bunch of them out there. A Mario Lemieux went for a third of that. So I could have had 3 Lemieux. I could have had 5 Brodeurs. In no other situation does that comparable make any sense. The math doesn't work. So is that comp valid? Well, there's another wrinkle. The seller, like I said, had 2. So I reached out and said, well, would you be willing to move the other one? Okay. And he said, no, the other guy made me a really generous offer. So I sold him the other one too. So the guy went and bought both of them. Now, if he's saying it's a very, very generous offer and he, just having sold it for $400, wasn't willing to go and put the second one up, considering he had an underbidder that was willing to go for $436, it suggests to me the second one probably was sold for the same ballpark. So now here's the question. Is that the comp? Because I was far and away the second underbidder. If another one came up open auction, assuming this guy isn't trying to corner them and buy all 12, the next one would sell for less. A lot less. So what's the comp? If I go with the data points, which are legitimate, it's a legitimate data point in a real auction, it says it should be 3 times the Lemieux. That's what the math says. Otherwise, it didn't make any sense because all the other ones settled within a certain range depending on the pecking order of the player. All the other ones for that patch set that were sold for around what you would expect depending on the player compared to the other players. They all kind of settled in within a certain range. This was the only outlier that was way. You can buy a Patrick Waugh right now for $350. Buy it now, right this second. So I could have the Patrick Waugh and the Lemieux for a couple more bucks than the Medina so far. That doesn't make any damn sense.
Agree.
So that's the first part. So that's why I say a comp can be based on very strange circumstances, but if somebody goes and looks at the data point, they would be 100% correct that that is what it's sold for. And I know this for a fact because I was a participant in that auction, so I could directly say, yes, it did sell for that. So that's the first thing. Second thing, where Dave's point, as a collector, it can be just as complicated to make a trade as it is for a dealer. A dealer may have buyers for some of these cards that you're offering, so they may still be able to use some of those additional things. But if I have a card that maybe you want and you have a card that I want, but my card is worth 10 times more, you would cobble together a package, but I'm basically collecting a handful of things. If it doesn't fit within that criteria, I might be willing to do a deal with you, but then I got to figure out what the hell am I doing with this other crap? I don't need it. Mm-hmm. So either do I sell it off, do I B trade it off, or what do I do with this? So in certain ways, and Dave's experiences, even if we could come to a deal that is comparable in value, if I don't need the stuff you're offering, even though it's good stuff, but I don't need it, being a collector doesn't make that any easier because it's actually harder because I'm not a dealer. So I'm not necessarily considering, okay, well, actually, I know a guy who collects this and I can probably do something with this and maybe bunch this up with some other stuff I've got to make a deal for this other thing. So as a dealer, I may have more options at my disposal to be able to get rid of this stuff. So I actually may be more inclined to be like, yeah, sure, Dave. Yeah, we can work something out. For a collector, it might be a little trickier if their collecting pursuit's a little more narrow. Mm-hmm. So then all of a sudden you're like, I actually am only interested in this. And if you don't have it, well, then what are we going to do with it? Then you pretty much have to offer cash. And the beauty of cash is that cash is flexible. Because if I'm willing to do a deal for cash, the only argument we're having is how much. That's the only debate we're having. It's not about whether I'll accept your cash or not. If I agree that I'll take a cash deal, we're just talking about how much. I want X, you want Y. If we can find somewhere in the middle, then we're good. Then the deal's done.
And that's usually when it comes down to the brass tacks of it. When we want something or we find something like the country of origin, like atomic refractors, like Crusades, Mirror Platinum Golds, Star Quest Golds, whatever. Most of the time, if we see something like that on eBay, because we know, like we've exchanged from some of those Facebook groups, Carlos, the pictures of the Star Quest Gold guys trying to put together those sets. Obviously, if they broke up those sets, whatever they had into some of the minor stars or the semi-stars, it would pale in comparison, I'm guessing, what they'd want to fetch in the open market. Because they know how tough it is, even if they don't like a Sergei Samsonov. That might not be their cup of tea, but it's like, okay, the Rainbow just sold for $705.
Yeah.
So guess what? That's probably the starting point, because the red, green, and the blue, those can be had for under 10 shipped combined.
I like to think that they paid $685 for the red, Dave. I think they just really wanted the red one. It's just so pretty. Red is a wonderful color.
Well, they could have wanted that for the green because they didn't want to be green with envy.
There you go. Exactly.
Or they wanted to pay more because green is the color of money.
It is a fact. Let's not underplay it, Dave. Let's not underplay it. You know.
So I think I got lucky with the trade that I'll eventually show off, because the guy that wanted or had it, I think he was trying to put together that set, but at the same time, that's just a set that you're going to be trying to piece together until you die. It's just not something that's going to be feasible, and you're going to be paying $150 for Dino Cicerelli or $200. The Potvin went fairly cheap. That was up, I think, within the last couple weeks. I think that was like $194 American, so I don't know what that $220, $230 Canadian-ish. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at $100 probably minimum for a common. Just a nobody. Somebody that has any name value, any name, 150 to 200. And then probably any star, it depends. You see it on the open market. It could be the country of origin Madonna, where you just like, okay, I can get 5 of the brodeurs for that, but a Madonna one for that? What?
Yeah.
Are you guys on the Cheech and Chong tour bus, or what's going on here? So,
But that's why I use that specific example, because if you're trying to establish a comp, it's going to throw you off that you're
Yep.
looking at the players and comparing them to each other and going like, something seems odd here. Because even within a set that has a certain known scarcity, if with a set with a known print run, when a bunch of them become available, usually things fall within a certain pecking order. But when you see something that goes completely out of whack compared to what you were expecting for the pecking order to work, the Lemieux is a legitimate litmus test. He's a high end player in that set.
mhm.
The fact that you can get the wall, buy it now for $350. That should be a factor. That if you were doing comps, you'd be like, okay, well then this should settle lower than that, and
Yep.
it should fall somewhere. If we use comps, the Medano should have been somewhere in the 120, 130 neighborhood, maybe 110.
Yep.
Somewhere in that vicinity. Not even close. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the joys of dealing with anomalies in those situations and scenarios.
Yeah.
And as a player collector, at least for the three of us specifically who are on the panel right now, as a player collector, you stumble across anomalies from time to time, and you're sitting there scratching your head going, okay, wait a minute, one of these just sold 6 months ago for X. And I'm not even talking about the market right now. Let's just take that whole thing out of the equation, because that just creates additional anomalies and everything else that none of us can bother to truly understand or fathom or comprehend. But you go years back and still seeing some of those anomalies, and you then try. You have some that sell in that capacity type situation. Somebody else lists another one, and now it's a high buy it now best offer, and it's because of that last comp.
Mm-hmm.
And you try and reach out to them. It's like, well, the last one sold for X, and you're sitting there going, okay. It's like you almost want to say, have you considered that to be an anomaly? Here's what the last X have sold for. Compare the differences. Throw out the lowest one, throw out the highest one. Let's look at the average type situation. Sometimes that works for those people who practice logic. Others, however, they look at that last comp, and that's, like you said, Carlos, that's kind of like the basis for anything moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always the right basis to kind of put things on, because anything can happen.
There's so many variables too. And we've mentioned a bunch, but then I know Carlos and I were talking after that auction went off. It's like, this isn't, for us, considered one of the big cards. This isn't like you put up your Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
This is one of the 4 that you think: Mirror Golds, Star Quest, the Run for the Cup, stuff like that, where it's like, okay, Atomic Refractors, you understand that. When this comes and you're like, what Carlos alluded to, is somebody trying to put together the 12?
Mhm.
Are they trying to do a set themselves? 2 sets? I don't know, but you think if that were the case, because you had mentioned when I brought that up about 10 days ago, it's like, these don't pop. So this isn't like you're running the mill, like, be a player, okay, here's like a jersey or something. This is, again, to 12, it's obviously limited, but at the same time, these aren't just, okay, one every 4 months, one every 6 months. No, this is none any like 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. I mean, they're just, you don't see them. So
Are they all numbered to 12? Just out of curiosity.
So Be a Player had a lot of fun in that era where they don't number anything.
Mm-hmm.
We know the print run is 12. It's been that has been out there long enough. We're pretty comfortable that that is accurate. Their record keeping is pretty decent. I wish they did number some of this stuff, and they did it inconsistently because there would be some years and some sets where they would number certain cards, and I'd be like, why don't you either number everything, number nothing? Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'd stamp it, sometimes they'd print it. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Just a smidge of consistency would be wonderful. Just a smidge. But one point that Dave made is accurate because the circumstances were perfect. There was a perfect storm that allowed it to play out. Because if I wasn't willing to go that strong, it sells for 25, 30, 40% less. Because I pushed it all the way up to that number. I did a snipe. I wasn't sitting there bidding it all the way up. I put in a number that was very aggressive, very strong, and I lost by at least 1 unit. I don't know if they were willing to go to $600, $700, $1,000. I have no idea how high they were actually willing to go. eBay will only go one increment higher, so it's $5. But regardless, it's kind of playing what Dave said, though, is that I was basically looking at my checklist and looking at that 2001, 2002 beer player memorabilia year and seeing that I have most of the stuff from that year, and I had some stuff coming in. So working on that be a player memorabilia set. So I had this one come in today. That's the double jersey for it.
Okay.
I got one of the emblems the other day. So I've got most of the stuff from this series. The appeal to me was knocking off one of the big pieces remaining on that remaining piece of that checklist. So it actually made it more interesting to me because if it wasn't for that, numbered to 12 or not, or limited to 12 or not, I'm not offering more than $100 for it.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. I'm not offering 440, so it wouldn't have even been in play. And right now, if somebody tried to play that comp game with me, I go, well, I was the underbidder on it. I'll give you $100 because I'm still interested, but like, I'm annoyed that there were two of them out there in play and somebody just decided to go, I'm just going to drop a gold brick on this. So that's where the psychology plays in. Like, my interest is still there, but actually my interest went down. I'm not more desperate to get it. I'm actually going to pay you less. All the comps in the world aren't going to change that. And if you don't want to sell it to me, I'll live without it.
Let's be real. They offered him Doge. That's why he took it.
And that's at least understandable. I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. But otherwise, like, it's the opposite. For some folks, that would make them more determined. It would become like, you know, the white whale, and it'd be the Captain Ahab thing. It's like, nah, I got other things to do, man. I'll move on. It would be nice. It would have been nice to go for it, but I still need a couple of the other ones anyway. So it's like, fine. But the next offer I make on one of those is going to be much lower, not higher.
Well, the nice thing about you losing it, the possibility that's you were planning on spending that on said card. Now that you lost, you technically still have that in play for other bigger items though too. So I mean, it kind of works out both ways in that situation, at least for you in that situation.
Well, that very night, as soon as that was done, I went and bought a different Upper Deck patch out of 15. There was one that came up within hours of it on the, it was like, oh, sweet. I'll take that then. It's like, I can move on. Like, as a player collector over the years, I've developed the capability of having amnesia. I'm annoyed in the moment. All right, I'm over it. On to the next thing. There's lots on that checklist. Plenty of stuff to scratch off.
Yep, agreed. I'm surprised nobody's mentioned anything. I know Ty kind of alluded to a couple of things in which, you know, he experienced from a trading perspective, but either we have a group full of listeners who don't do a whole lot of trading or maybe they had bad experience. But I meant it, you know, from my experience is limited and it's years ago. Mm-hmm. The last trade I made was 06 and it was it was 2006 Topps Chrome autos for one auto because I was working on the set. Mm-hmm. And it was a tier A autograph that I needed. And I had a couple lower ends that he needed. And we were able to easy swap at the card shop, you know, plain, simple, quick, to the point, and done. Mm-hmm. We were both happy. Had nothing to do with comps, had nothing to do with, you know, conceived value or perceived value, anything along those lines. It was, you know, we were helping each other out to complete a set. So it worked out. The other one, of course, I brought up is always the 95 SP. That by far is still the one that, I feel like I walked away as winner chicken dinner in that situation. I stole what I got from that trade,
All right.
considering where we are now, of course. But
Sure.
in that situation, that's what the dealer wanted to do, and he had one card that it was like, all right, if we want to work something out, the deal has to include the 93 SP Bledsoe, which I still have to this very day, and
Mm-hmm.
it's screw down. So if it's something that simple, so to speak, to
Mm-hmm.
where you have something that somebody wants really bad, and if it works for you, whether it be he gets the better deal, you get the better deal, then there's no harm, no foul in those situations. The issue that I'm seeing nowadays is it's too damn complicated. And yes, do I use comps in certain situations to base my offers on certain things when I'm looking to purchase? Yes. However, there are certain situations in which comps become irrelevant to me because I know the rarity of said card. This was an anomaly. It sold for way less than it should.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to offer more.
Mm-hmm.
Or vice versa, depending on the situation, like you alluded to, Carlos.
Yeah.
You're not going to pay $400 something if another one pops up
Mm-hmm.
because you were the underbidder. And if somebody really wants to move something, they have options. So,
Yeah. The other thing is it was that psychology piece I was talking about. Part of my interest that made me such an aggressive bidder was that I liked the novelty, the idea of chipping away at that particular piece of the checklist. But if I know somebody's out there who's willing to throw really dumb money into it, I'm like, okay, I'll keep an eye. But if you're going to do that on all the ones that come up, you know what? Go have at it, buddy. Because I'm not going to play that game and I'm not going to overpay for what would be a cool novel. I've got plenty of rainbows that I've completed over the course of my collection career. It's like, it's not the most important one. It would be a cool card to add. It
Mm-hmm.
was a good opportunity because I knew the seller had two. So I figured, I probably have two cracks at this. It didn't turn out to be the case. But that's okay. And that's fine. But the other piece that plays into it as well is that when you're going in, the comps do matter here for trade is because you got to have some kind of establishment of a pecking order because otherwise it gets really difficult to be like, you don't have to be like to the penny, dollar for dollar. But one thing that plays into it that Steve also alluded to that is a perfect thing that I saw at that Dallas show is it's a new dynamic for those of you who do eventually get to go to card shows again in either the rest of the year or in the years to come up. Now that YouTube and people filming these things is so common that there were so many people with cameras everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
People are terrified of being caught on camera losing a deal. That plays into the psychology too, because a bunch of them are like, oh, I got to drive a hard bargain. I got to squeeze every dime out of this because the people on the internet will make fun of me. Well, you're not wrong. I'll make fun of you. But that's not the point. The point is, there are other people on the internet who also make fun of you. If that's any consolation, if that helps.
No, that'll be interesting too with the shows. And that was something I didn't even like really think about for like the national.
Mm-hmm.
How many of these people are going to be with like an entourage, a posse of like videographers that are just going to be sitting there and constantly filming? It seemed like everybody had a camera at that Dallas show.
Yeah.
Sitting there and like vlogging. No matter somebody's just like scanning the room, you see boom, 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 and or somebody following somebody with their like the posse, and it's like I'm not. Again, I've mentioned what I paid for cards. I don't care because it always boils down to, for us, the I hate always using the true collector, but the folks that are trying to get the card for their collection, not for an immediate flip, not for a flip in 2 months, not for a flip in a year, not for a flip, really, period, unless something. If Madonna was still playing, guess what? He scores like 1,000 goals. His stuff goes up 5 times or whatever. Then Carlos, you might say, well, maybe I can part with a couple doubles at that point. But we're not looking at that stuff. We're not looking at our players to pick them up just to sell them down the road. If there's an opportunity for a double, that's a really key double, or a triple, or a 40, you might pick it up because it's at a value you think is a very good value. And
Only 40, Dave.
40x.
How many dumbbells do you have?
62,365,000. Oh, sorry. That's PCs. I forgot.
Yeah, that's PCs. We're talking about specifically dumbbell cards. So, like, cut that number in half, Steve. In half.
Cut that number in half and multiply it by 2.
Probably, yes.
So, we're not. If we feel good with the deal, we'll do it. It's not we're sitting there and thinking, like, well, how can I parlay this into something else? It's, if I like this card, I'm okay with either paying this price or trading XYZ cards for it. More than likely, we'll do it. These other guys, they don't want to be seen as weak, I guess. I don't know. If you want something and you want to get it, you trade down on something. Oh no, the end of the world. You traded down on a PSA 9 Luke Silver. Who cares? If you got something that's serial numbered or something that you really wanted, do it. But that's it. You put yourself out there, people will make fun of you. It's the internet. Guess what? You open Pandora's box, people will come into Pandora's box every time. Any collector will come in Pandora's box whenever they can.
Interesting analogy,
I
Dave.
don't think that's the way that box works, Dave. Allegedly, I don't think that was the way that box worked, Dave. Steering it back over. I'm just gonna steer off the side of the road for just 1 second. Just bring us back on track a little bit. One thing I was going to say, though, is that the great irony is a lot of those folks that I know were concerned about being seen as weak in the deal actually came off even more weak in their attempt to do it. Because the way I know, my indicator of how something is obvious is when the oblivious pick up on it. And I was like, this is fantastic. So I've downloaded a clip of one of the vlogs of a guy named Flippin' Steve. I like some of his stuff. I'll watch it and pay attention to it because at least he's got a little bit of an interesting angle on himself. But it's flipping stuff. His name is Flippin' Steve, so figure it out. He's other Steve. But the point is that in that vlog, he had personal finance dad in there who, in a moment of complete lucidity, completely hit the nail on the head as far as trading is concerned. And he literally I think it was an offhanded comment, but in the course of saying it, he said exactly the correct thing. The correct analysis was had. He said, yeah, it seems like a lot of times the one who kind of wins the deal is the one who talks the least. The one who talks the most hurts themselves in the deal. And I was like, look at you picking up on the correct answer. It's like, how many times did you try that? Look at you hitting it just right. But it's true. In a lot of those logs, if you watch, when there's two people on the screen doing the back and forth, if there's quiet for a moment, like when I used to negotiate deals at card shows and stuff like that, I was the guy who would process everything internally. I'm not verbalizing every thought that crosses my mind. You don't want most of those. Most of them allegedly would be considered illegal, most of those thoughts. You know, they mostly involve harm to others, possibly, allegedly, potentially. But the point is, you don't have to share every single thought in your head when you're doing a negotiation. You can be processing, calculating things and being like, I can probably do this. And if I position it this way and I say it this way, maybe I can get this, whatever. But as soon as there was a little bit of quiet, there was no moment allowed for a quick pause. They felt compelled to say more things. And then they would basically negotiate against themselves. And if the other person was smart, they would just sit there like, if I say nothing, this deal is getting better every minute that goes by if I just shut up and say nothing. And the other person would keep talking themselves into a better deal for the other person. So the one who could just sit back patiently was actually getting the better end of the deal as the deal continued.
One question I have since we are starting to see so many vlogs and, cataloging a lot of these deals from multiple YouTubers or Instagram folks and things along those lines, whether they be dealers, collectors, investors, flippers, it doesn't matter. I've always wondered in situations like that if people have ever considered uh, being asked if they can be recorded, because there is such a thing as privacy.
Mhm.
And I understand it's an open forum, it's an open type situation, but at the same time, do these people give the okay to be recorded in situations like that? Or do they just, let it happen, and then if something transpires or whatnot, becomes an issue?
Yeah. I can
Because
tell
if I'm sorry,
quickly.
go ahead.
I'll just say really quickly. I can't speak to all of them. I know in some of the vlogs they've left it in where they explicitly ask if it's okay to record. So this isn't an
And I've
across the
heard
board.
it.
Yeah, but
And
some have
I've heard it
definitely
in
asked. Yeah.
and I've heard it in certain situations.
Yeah.
But for instance, if I'm Sasha T and to a jacket guy, as he's been alluded to or called in one of your podcasts, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh,
He has a name, I'm sure, but I don't care what it is. He's Jacket Guy.
it's one of those in which it's like that was a big deal.
Yep.
You're talking substantial amounts of cash,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and it's recorded. It's all there for the world to see. I mean, that could have tax implications, folks. So it's one of those in which, to me, you would want to be more cognizant of what you're willing to put out there as public record and run the risk of something transpiring later on down the road. Granted, you'd have to know name and everything else and put two and two together, but at the same time, somebody puts entrepreneur on their IRS taxes, and a bunch of losses and everything else. It's one of those in which it could get interesting. And I'm not saying that would happen or anything along the. I'm not business savvy by any stretch of the imagination. I'm very cognizant, I guess, in those situations of, if that were me, I'd be more apt to try and keep things on the download, where it's like nobody needs to know about this. It's none of nobody's business.
Yeah. That was you basically, I think what you're alluding to basically is you negate one of the advantages of being an unregulated cash-based business, in that deals can happen just at a card show that don't appear anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as anybody, cards are small. Cards can shift from one box to another very easily, very quietly, and very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a cash transaction, some cash changes hands. That's where that whole cash trade deals come into play, where it's like some cash, some trade. That's where it's like, okay, but how much was this deal really worth? Because you traded a couple of pieces of cardboard and a couple of $100 worth of cash. So was the deal a couple of $100, or was it thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars? It's there's a lot of ways to move stuff around on paper, but it's, pardon the pun, but effectively that's what's happening. But the recording piece is important because, yeah, if one of the tax departments could literally make a great living just building a bunch of cases, going like, yes, individual who operates out of this state and is running this card show. It's like, you've got a brick and mortar store. How many sales did you do at the card show in Dallas? I saw a lot of vlogs. It looked like you did a lot more than you're reporting here. How much money did you make?
And that's where things get complicated. And I guess and I'm not trying to dog anybody by any stretch of the imagination. If people want to do what they want to do, that's on them. But if I were to take advantage of the market, which at some time I plan to, just need PSA to open its doors back up and be able to send a few things off. I'm going to do things the way I've always done it. If people want to buy stuff from me off of eBay or through Instagram, it's still going to be as goods. It protects me. It protects them. It's legitimate. I'll get my tax form, so on and so forth. I'll do what I need to. It's stuff like that has always scared me, because I'm going to be the idiot that would get caught somehow, shape, form, or fashion. And when you look at Instagram, a lot of people use their name, their full name. Now, if your name is John Smith, the chances of you finding out which John Smith this said individual is would take a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
because there could be 10 John Smiths in Ely, Minnesota, for instance.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But even from a small town or a smaller town perspective, something like that, it's a lot harder for them to so-called track you, or in that situation, be able to put two and two together and track you down. Somebody like me, my last name is different. Yes, there are others out there, but still, it would be very easy for them to come find me in that situation, and I'd be the dumbass that got caught.
Plus, you're
So,
high profile and hockey oracledom, which makes you like worldwide famous.
yeah, well, it still isn't self-proclaimed, so I
You're
still
huge
don't
in the Czech Republic, Steve. The hockey oracle is big in the Czech Republic.
prove it.
All right, when we send you images, it's like, is that a shrine? Can I be held responsible for what the people of the Czech Republic do? I cannot.
Well, and you do know I am Czech, by the way. I'm only a quarter, but I am Czech.
What a coincidence!
I think that was just a very big coincidence because that's not something that most people know about me.
I'm good at magnificent guesses.
Yeah, you have proven quite well at that. It's no different than obviously you have a wonderful way of summoning me to your live streams too.
You can't be the only one with power, Steve. You can't just be.
I'll accept that.
Yeah.
I'll accept that. And it's kind of interesting. I was talking to Vinny about that I think we were chatting Sunday night on the phone. And we started talking about it after Cardboard Underground mentioned it in the chat, in our group chat. And I was like, guys, what you don't understand, and this is what is so odd about this. I am not lurking. Ever. For whatever reason, I come on, and it's never when I'm going live with you, Carlos, as you know. It's always when I'm just coming to hang out or whatnot. And as I'm typing, hey fellas, here comes my name, and it's like, then everything falls into place. There's a few comments, and then here comes Carlos. Now look who decided to show up. So I don't know. That's major coincidence, or we have like mental telepathy or like Jedi mind tricks going on here or something. I don't know.
It is the prophecy foretold.
Could be. Of course, autocorrect said Jewish mind tricks, but I was.
I can't help you there. You're on your own.
I had to correct. Had to make my correction, but everybody kind of got a laugh out of that one. I am not a prodigal son. I am not the hockey oracle, even though I have been given that name. I think a few weeks ago I was granted the tennis oracle.
Well, I think that's more of a minor oracledom. It's like a mini fiefdom because no one else claims it. I think it was hope. I think it was like, it's like, can we have a tennis oracle? Do we really need one? Yes. Roger Federer says we need one. Fine.
So before we kind of, I'll let you take it over here, Dave, briefly, before we just kind of see where it goes. I just wanted to position it to the chat before we kind of move on. If anybody else had any other trade stories or trade experiences or anything along those lines as it pertains to whether it be PC related cards, set cards, looking at even picking up stuff for, a friend. Years ago, that was a thing. Trading other collectors for cards to be able to send to people in care packages. So just curious to know if there's anybody else who had any stories they wanted to share. Of course, always interested to get everybody's feedback. But David, I didn't know if you had anything else that you wanted to add to the trade topic.
I'd say when you're talking about the guys flexing the wads of cash. I've seen people, and again, this is just the few videos I've watched over the last few days. I've seen people with like an envelope with
Hmm.
the bills in it, which I'm never crazy about. The guy that I've been watching, I think at the second day of that Dallas show this past weekend, he just had money sort of dangling out of his shorts pocket. I don't like that. I know you're not going to probably be able to fit a lot of the wad of cash, as it were, that some of these folks bring around in a billfold. I know that, but you'd think you'd have a billfold plus. Why not put it on your dude that's doing the videotaping? You're trusting him or you're paying him for or her to videotape, sort of take some of that pressure off you. Again, you're editing everything anyway, so it's not like these are just going to be raw. Oh, hey, hand me my wallet or hand me my second wallet. And I think because again, a business owner who died, I don't know how many years ago now, he tipped me a couple bucks every time I carried out his groceries.
Hmm.
Like, how do you put your money in your wallet? I'm like, well, I put all the smallest to largest bills, and everything's in order, facing out or facing the outside of the wallet when I open it up. And he's like, what about the corners? Do you unwrinkle them? I'm like, not really. He's like, do that. It's like, if you work hard for your money, take care of your money, even if it's the actual physical sense of taking care of your money. So I was like, it's not a bad idea. I mean, again, tedious at times, but still, I'm like, that's something that this old curmudgeon and one of his little tidbits of wisdom actually bestowed. I'm like, that stuck with me. So when
Old
I
curmudgeon wisdom, eh?
yes, so I'm like, that's something I can aspire to be if I live to that age. So when I see the people just sort of pulling money out of their pocket, like it's the clown pulling the multicolored handkerchief out of somebody else's pocket when they're doing the tricks, or the magician, it's right away. It's like, well, you don't really care about your money if that's how you just sort of shove it in your pocket and you like unwad it. Like that's not what I would be doing, and that instantly makes me think less of them. But they're gonna keep showing. I don't care if it's like a $2 million deal in cash. They will show that. Why? Likes, followers, subscribers, super chat people, Patreon people, Discord people, whatever. People that are going to start gravitating towards them, people that will put money in their pocket with them just saying utter malarkey and nonsense. But that's what's going to happen, no matter what ramifications, like tax wise or whatnot. They want to be in that upper echelon. They want to be named with Gary Vee, Sasha T, all these other super influencers of today's hobby. If their name can be spoken in that same paragraph, it's like X-Pac in the NWO, not because a lot of people watch wrestling. You thought of the NWO as Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. X-Pac came, he got the rub of those guys, and so that elevated his stock. Was he ever a great wrestler? Maybe in the early 90s, but when he was in the NWO and DX, he wasn't a guy that was the main focus. But if you can be mentioned in the same breath with Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and then Shawn Michaels and Triple H and the New Age Outlaws, and China even, guess what? You put yourself on that map in some way, shape, or form, and that's the same thing a lot of these guys want to be now. No matter what consequence financially down the road it may have, if they can get the justification and the gratification today.
Look at you. One thing I was going to add to what you're saying though is that part of it is that big wads of cash and taking the pictures of it and doing all that stuff. It's more exciting for the vlog,
Oh
But if
yes.
you go back and look at some of the other vloggers that are a little bit more logical, that are a little bit more business oriented, they will be like, "Yeah, I've got some cash for sure," because obviously some deals facilitate it that way. But we do PayPal,
Yep.
we do Venmo. Like if you're going to do a couple of grand, you're probably going to be, it's probably easier for you to be like, well, could you take PayPal or Venmo? I can just send it over right now while you're at the table. You'd be literally
Mhm.
like, basically like this. It's like, okay, so how much can I do PayPal for you? Okay, what's the email? Boom, 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 boom. Can you just confirm you got it? Great, deal's done. Like in the 21st century, there's a people downplay like it's been a couple of years now since the last card show. They're planning for a fall expo this year. We'll see if they manage it. It'll be the first in 2 years. But in the last fall expo, I had some cash. I like keeping cash in a couple of separate places, compartments or pockets or whatever the case may be, not having it all in one place.
Yep.
But what you do afterwards is if you're doing a deal, instead of me going to the bank machine, if I didn't bring enough cash for that deal, it's like, especially if I already know the dealer.
Hmm.
So in that instance, we can even take another option because inside of the banking system in the country, if it's a local dealer, I can be like, you take Interac? Yep. Boom, boom, boom. All right, you got it? Yep, we're good. Here's your card. Couple of minutes and we're done.
Yeah.
Physically, no cash changed hands, but they still got their payment.
Hmm.
And it deposited directly into their account. Done. Just as good as cash
Hmm.
without having to physically remove the cash. So from someone watching in a vlog, you have no idea how much. I could have sent 100. I could have sent $1,000. You wouldn't know
Yep.
the difference. Looks the same. But in that sense, from a security perspective, all you saw is that you know something changed hands, and then the dealer handed you the card. But you don't know, if you're not trying to show off, you don't know the nature of the size of the transaction. So you kind of like safeguarded yourself, but then the money still changed hands. Everything is good. Everything's on the up and up, and the records are still kept. The dealer still has the records as well.
Yeah. That's the tough part with a lot of these guys though that I've seen, even with them not saying if they've done some of these electronic transfers.
Sure.
They'll put it up on the screen. Hey, I got this and this, and I got it for this and X amount of money. Or I paid X amount of money for boom, boom, boom. It's like I I'll never understand that flex because everybody's bought cards that's actually been in the hobby for quite a while now. I'll always say I'll tell people what I paid for my cards. I'm not going to sit and put numbers and like edit graphics on there and little gifs or whatever. I don't care about that stuff. But you want to have some knowledge of that purchase. You want to remember, okay, I paid this for this. Even if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, man, I saw you got that. How much did you pay for that?"
Mhm.
Because I've got one that I'm thinking of selling. Okay, here's what I paid, and then X after taxes and whatever else. It's like, okay, there you go. Then you can go and whatever rando seller, you go from there with the information I've given you. And if anybody goes back on like an Instagram, sees like a couple of the bigger pieces I've bought, they can come to me and I say, I got it for this at this time. Where the market is at now, I don't know. The Broder I got back in January, there hasn't been another one that's popped. I haven't looked at Lombardi cut autos probably good 6 to 8 months, so I don't know where that market's at. But I know the nine it was like a 9.5, I think a 959 auto that was up at the same time I got mine was I think like a 1900. And on auction I got mine for 9. So I'm like, I felt comfortable. That was again a grail piece, something I'd saved for. I wasn't going to national, so whatever money I sort of had possibly earmarked for that, I could transition to that card, which again, trying to get a cut autograph with Lombardi's full name on is damn near impossible. Thank you, Upper Deck. Because that I is usually off or part of that V. So this was basically the I. You could see where it started and it's off. But it's a 959 and there's 7 copies and I know where 3 are. So again, for that price, you knock out a Grail. Vince Lombardi's not going down. His prices aren't. I mean, he's down 6 feet in the ground, but I mean, he's not physically. His prices will not go down, especially in the autograph. So I mean, with some of those purchases, you have to use what you feel and you're comfortable with. Comps necessarily might not come into play at all. You might just be like, okay, this is a Grail. I know I'm going to have to pay between this and this. I'd rather not pay. I don't want to set those records like other people. That's not part of the fun. I want to be in sort of a comfort zone between two nice cushy pillows instead of against like the headboard and getting pushed up against it. You want to leave room, but at the same time, you don't want to come down to the end, let's say, of an auction, a deal. There's smiling going on?
Yeah, well, I don't know what Carlos is thinking, but I
just
something.
sometimes there's analogies, Dave, that you'll go with, and I'll just be like, "How did he arrive at this destination? How did we get here?"
Oh, see, mine was that had nothing to do with it. You know, I don't know about anybody else, but there are times in which I don't mind having my head thrusting up against the back of a headboard. So be careful using that analogy, Dave. That could be extremely pleasurable in certain situations.
Not when buying cards.
So make sure you specify in that situation.
Well, I'm just curious how often you're involved with headboards in the card situation. How often is this a problem? And how often are you surrounded by pillows during buying cards in your other scenario?
In his dreams, Carlos.
Yeah,
in his dreams.
I guess so. I guess that's part of it there too. One thing I was going to say though is as part of the conversation though about the whole showing off the dollar amounts, and that yes, it's dangerous from a certain perspective, but I will say, and I think for some of these folks it's a tactic. It's not just showing off though. You're in this era where with so many people sharing so much stuff with the vlogs, transparency is an advertising tactic. Like Gary Vee has brought that into parlance, and it's become a thing where it's like, I am not hiding this, because when you're editing a vlog, you can show as much or as little as you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can reenact it. You can make it into a fake show if you want to, or you can play them how mundane it is, or you can make it really exciting. You can edit it, put some music on it, do all kinds of crazy stuff if you want to. Do a director's chair commentary, pause the thing, and then do a director's commentary where you're sitting in the corner explaining it. You can do 100 things with editing. That's the beauty of editing. But if you're showing off, this was the deal. I traded this card and $2,000 for this card and this card. Then for some folks, it's like, oh, look at how transparent they're being. Okay, I'm interested in what you're doing. I'm engaged in what you're doing.
And from a transparency perspective, I don't disagree. But, you know, to circle back with what Dave kind of alluded to, it's if you discuss the transparency piece of how you got the deal done is one thing. But, you know, pulling out stacks and stacks and stacks of cash or showing stacks and stacks of cash, I think is more where he was kind of alluding to. And from that perspective, to me, that is a flex. If you're going to sit there and go in your fanny pack and, you know, pull out your cash envelopes in like multiple facets, or sitting down stacks of $100 bills, you know, tagged from the bank type situation, there is some flex in there.
Yep.
I will agree that from the transparency perspective, I think it's almost like it's more of a requirement these days, which is why I think you see a lot of it. But at the same time, you know, a lot of hardworking people, like the bulk of us, it's not about what we have over what somebody else has, or how much we spent over what somebody else has spent type situations. These people are figureheads, and as Dave alluded to, it's a tactic to get that additional that additional, you know, following, and, you know, whether that adds to your pocketbook because of subscribers or, you know, whatever, if you monetize your channel and stuff along those lines. there's a multitude of facets that come into play there. I do agree, though, Carlos, that from a transparency perspective, it does change the dynamic a little bit, and more people, I feel, are more apt to follow somebody in the event that that's in fact what they're trying to convey.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason some of them do. Where the point that you made about more people doing it is that here's the best advertising piece you can have. You know what's the best piece of advertising and PR you can have today? Authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
If people believe you're authentic, if they think you're being real, then they tend to be more comfortable. They tend to gravitate towards it. And that can take a lot of different ways. They can be like, oh, they're showing us the transactions. They're showing us all this stuff happening. They're showing us this, that, and the other thing. Or they're not holding back. They're saying it. Mm-hmm. They're thinking certain thing. They're actually saying it, as opposed to like you looking at them and go like, I feel like they're going to say something, but they don't say it. As opposed to it's like, no, they say it. I think a lot of them have it ingrained in their brain. That's the reason why a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these deals are happening where everybody's saying out loud whatever's in their head. But I think a lot of them have gotten into that habit now, and they can't get themselves out of it. And now it's just standard for a lot of these people. And even showing the stacks of cash and all that, that's aspirational for a bunch of the kids watching, because for them, they're not used to seeing that much cash. And how you perceive stacks of cash is going to alter how you take that. When I look at it, part of the reason why I don't get too impressed with that stuff is not because I've had stacks and stacks of cash, but I've worked in jobs where I've had stacks of cash. I worked in the bank in corporate deposits. A lot of people look at the stack and have never seen that much money in their lives, and they'll even talk about it in the vlog. Oh my God, I've never seen that much money in my life. It's like, it depends on what your life experience is. How many people have held $10 million in their hands in cash? I have. Well, Dave, not at your house. I mean like outside of your house. But I worked in corporate deposits. And when I was working in corporate deposits for a little while, it's basically being a glorified teller, but you're doing this for corporations. Or in this case, you were doing it for the Canadian National Exhibition, the CNE Casino. Well, the casino operates in cash. So what do? You open up envelopes full of cash, and you got those little counting machines. This was part of my job. I took this stuff out. My job was to make sure how much cash they said was on there is how much was on there. The reason it was such a large amount isn't because it was all in one envelope. It's because you're taking it, you're putting it on the machine, putting the little slip on it. So $100 bills, 100 of those, that's 10 grand. You take 10 of those, you put them into a bundle. That's 100 grand. You put them into a stack on a tray full of bundles of $100,000. 100,000, 100,000, 100,000. Well, guess what? You keep doing that. Eventually, there will be a lot of money on this tray. And then somebody rolls off with it, and you've got 500 cameras above your head. And if you drop some change, you got to tell everybody around you did it, back up from the chair so that 10 people can watch you. It's a double security door in a sub-basement of a bank. I worked there. So I have held $10 million in my hand in cash. So you know what? Your little pittances, I don't care. Quit with your peasant money. 10 grand, like a peasant. Whatever, bro.
The difference is, though, it wasn't yours.
I've had $10,000 of my cash, and then I had to give it to the bank. So they got it. I held it, and then they got it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I took it from one to the other.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
In those situations, definitely.
Yeah. It is, but today, you don't need to have $10,000 in cash. There are very few scenarios in which you actually need that are legitimate. Mm-hmm. There are very few. A card show is like the last bastion outside of maybe Las Vegas, where you're holding a stack of cash for any reason. And they usually will do that like at the World Series of Poker. You'll have the person pose with the cash. It's like, but they basically get like a transfer to their account. They're not actually walking off with that cash. But you can take the picture with it, hug the cash and the chips, and then, all right, so which account do you want us to put it in?
Right.
Like, that's where the money's going. It's not cash. You can have some cash if you want. That place has as much as anywhere else, but it's not.
No, I want to stick it all in my pockets and walk out with it. I want 15 fanny packs stacked full of cash.
Live the dream, my friend. Live the dream.
Right.
Live the dream.
I did want to pose a question, though, and I don't know if anybody's caught this or heard about it, but I stumbled across something on Instagram that somebody ended up purchasing a fake Jordan at the show for $9 grand. Anybody hear about that?
No. What was the grade on the Jordan?
No grade. That's where a lot of the question has
I
come
was
into
gonna say.
play.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, $9,000 for a fake
Yeah,
Jordan
I would.
rookie.
Just as a standard of policy, if you're going to pay more than a couple of grand for a card that's like a high end one, you probably want to get it graded. That doesn't guarantee it will be perfect, but it gives you a little added security. We talk about that liquidity piece. I'm not paying 9 grand for a card that, and then hoping that I can properly authenticate it.
Right. Well, and see, and that's the reason why I posed the question, and it's on Instagram, and I'm pretty sure it was Card Porn that posted it. So if you want to go check it out, I know there's quite a few comments on it when I happen to look at it, for instance. But the reason why I posed the question is because of all the new blood that still is coming into the hobby. How many more times is this a possibility of transpiring yet again? Not specifically to, let's say, a Jordan rookie, for instance. Um, let's be real. If you really wanted to do your due diligence, there's a ton of information out there of how to spot a fake.
Mm-hmm.
But other cards, stupid. That's valid. I can't argue that. Uh, but it's one of those in which how many more people potentially could fall victim to that? Because you look at stuff on eBay, it is rampant. Reprint, you know, LeBron tops rookies, Kobe tops rookies. Yes, they are mentioned as reprints, RPs. In those situations, though, they are not manufactured reprints, as in like through a manufacturer of said sports cards.
Mm-hmm.
Those still, to me, I consider fakes. For reprints that are produced by a card manufacturer in later years as like a rookie review or a rookie retro type deal, you know, I know Topps did it with the 96 Topps Chrome set years ago, but it's, it's a quote unquote reprint and it's designated as such. But how many people, and I'm spitballing here, I'm just curious to know what people's opinion would be. How many people have actually fallen victim to purchasing a straight up fake without realizing it, or purchasing a reprint for a higher price than what it should have sold for, not realizing that the auction stated a reprint?
A lot.
Anybody want to spitball it percentage wise?
Sorry, you're talking about in general, just getting a
In
reprint?
general, in general, because of all the new people that are in the hobby,
Okay.
that have come in the hobby, how many people do you think have fallen victim to something like that?
I'm sure there's been a bunch, but I would say though that some of the ones that are new are also so skittish. So there's like this. I'll introduce this concept here, and maybe I'll flesh it out down the road. What you've got when you get new entrants into the hobby like that, especially in mass, you've got this really weird learning curve, and by that I mean you're going to have these people that are going to come in because they get this enthusiasm to come in, but they're also going to be a little paranoid at the beginning, which is to say that if they're going to buy a high end card, and even if they want to throw money at it right away, they probably will gravitate towards the graded card because they won't trust themselves. They'll know at least. It's not that they know that they don't know. It's just that they're like too scared to venture off too far on the first couple of purchases. Now, where the problem becomes is they're too stupid to know any better. It won't take long before they suddenly gather this confidence. So the likelihood isn't even in the first couple of transactions. The first couple, especially for high end or higher end card, they'll probably go for the graded copy, where at least they may potentially have some insulation or protection. But then immediately after they start getting this confidence, maybe they make a couple of deals and make a couple of dollars on a couple of deals. And all of a sudden now they're card experts after like 2.5 weeks. And now they start buying things thinking they're very clever. Because they will see these vlogs and think, oh, it must be really easy. But some people know how to operate within the environment, some people don't. I watched one earlier today, the Sasha T one, most recent one. It was a LeBron Chrome, I think. He bought a LeBron Chrome from one dealer, did a haggling session with him and the whole thing. Ended up buying for $18,500. Went to another dealer at the same show, probably within about an hour, and sold it for $19,500. He made $1,000 probably in about an hour. Other people look at it and go, oh, it must be really easy. It's like, well, it can be. Arbitrage in a card show, Sasha T didn't invent that. That happens all the time. There are people who maybe they see something that is actually, that's a rarer version of this autograph. It's an SP. So I'll buy it for X and go sell it to somebody else who knows exactly what this is for Y. They'll pay proper market value. The other person sold it for under market value, instant arbitrage. You made hundreds or thousands of dollars moving it from one table to another because they didn't catch it on the first time around. If you know what you're doing. In this case, it was a graded LeBron rookie that you knew what it was. It was sitting there in the holder, and he literally turned it into $1,000 by walking it across the room. Well, you do enough of those transactions, you made money by doing nothing more than just paying attention and being willing to do the inlay of cash.
Yep. And that's also the thing, paying attention.
Correct.
Knowing, making and I hate using this term, but making connections.
Yep.
Is a thing, whether it be from our perspective of, building friendships and everything else, or building connections as a way to liquidate or move stuff. It's a thing. You have to have those people, though, in the dealer game. If you're an actual shop type situation, or you're strictly a dealer that only sets up at card shows, you have to have that in order to run your business, because that's ways in which you can consistently liquidate inventory and consistently shift it around. So I get it. That still blows my mind to go from, buying it for X, basically at one side, and then go to the other side to where, it was that simple. Mm-hmm. But I would agree. People see things like that and automatically make the assumption that, okay, well, this seems very easy, mm-hmm. but yet in reality, it's a lot more complicated than what anybody wants to truly put forth the effort to learn.
Mm-hmm. By definition, Vinny, it is light work. The thing is, though, not to the same. Here's the great thing. I've often given Sasha T his credit because he's willing to grind. He's willing to make those consistent. His game is one of consistent rotation. You're consistently flipping the inventory constantly. If he had squeezed and wanted to hold it for a little bit, he probably could have made $2,000 or $3,000 on the card. That wasn't the point. The point is you can make $1,000 within minutes. So you go, you inlaid good money, but then you made $1,000. If I told you, all right, give me $18,000, I will come back in an hour with $19,000. If you don't, assuming you know that I'm not going to steal your money, you will make that deal because it's like, well, I just made $1,000 in an hour. Most people will take $1,000 in an hour. And if you can repeat that a couple of times in a day, well, that's a good day's work. Hashtag light work. It is possible. And I've seen that at a card show. I will say, though, I've seen people make $1,000 without having to inlay $18,000. That was actually a pretty high, but mind you, it was a high-end card. It was a Chrome PSA 10. It was a pretty high-end card. And he basically had to negotiate with the first guy. But at the same time, if the first guy had been willing to walk across the room and had found somebody, he could have made his own $19,000. Sasha basically turned himself into a middleman. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. You did it. You pulled it off. You realized that opportunity was there, so you took advantage of it. The first dealer got his money. The second dealer got his card. You got $1,000 for your trouble.
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah, they're all adults, so nobody was hiding anything from anybody. The first guy made the deal, he agreed to it, and the second guy made the deal and he agreed to it. So there's nothing wrong with that. I don't feel bad for anybody because it's like, well, you made the deal and you made the deal and you were both happy with it, presumably. Sasha can walk off with his grand and he's happy too.
Yeah, but on the flip side, as the dealer who sold it for $18,500, how irritated would you be? Though,
well, he'll get to see it in the vlog. He'll get to see it in the vlog. The good news is he gets a shout out, though, Steve. He gets a shout out. That's important.
Well, if it's marketing to where it drives, people to his tables or his shop or whatnot, okay, yeah, I get it. Hey, I'm the guy who freaking sold a card for cheaper than what I could have sold it for. I don't know if I'd want that, moniker or not, but hey.
Hey, it's
whatever.
home of the I made you $1,000 in 45 minutes. It's like, aren't you supposed to be making money? Just roll with it. Just go with it.
Well, and he probably made money on the deal though too, and
Oh no, of course
so
he's a dealer. He still made money on the deal. I will say there's nothing wrong with it if he was able to make his money. Sasha made his money, and then the guy who bought it for 19.5, if he went and sold it for somebody else for 21, the circle of life continues. So be it.
and I'm sure it's all the same people in which that card is circling around, like I've stated before. The same cards kind of just changing hands and different comps, whether they go up or down and different, whatever. It's interesting that, what I consider huge cards outside of, those individuals that are purchasing through like a Golden or a Heritage or a PWCC type situation, because we're not privy to know who any of those people are. But, those that we have access to from an Instagram or a YouTube perspective, I still feel a lot of those big cards, they keep exchanging through the same hands. Just throwing that out there. I can't prove it. It's just one of those things in which I have a feeling that there's, and by all means, it could be 50 people. I can't spitball a number by any stretch of the imagination, but it's one of those in which I've always thought that it seems like some of those big cards, those that are, 5 to 6 digits, seem to be going through the same hands at some point. I could be wrong.
But that's why I said that that whole business right now is based on consistent turnover. You posed the question earlier today. It's like, why would anybody take a loss on a card? And my answer was just that cash is more flexible. And that's all basically what I alluded to. It's just the cash. So, okay, you bought it for 10 grand. It was as high as 15, 16 grand. You got greedy and held it too long. And now it's 9 grand. You'd lose $1,000. Why would you sell it? Well, in order to get out of it, you had to do 7,500. So you lost $1,500. Why would you sell it? Well, with the $7,500, you went and bought 2 other cards that both went up, and then you actually ended up making $12,000. You didn't make a lot, but you actually made more money using the $7,500. Now, if you held that other card for another 6 months, maybe you sell it for 14. But if you can make the $12,000 in 30 days instead of wait 3 months to make 14, that money turns over and you move on to the next thing. It's a consistent rotation. So you'll lose sometimes, you'll win sometimes. Sometimes you'll take a smaller gain just to get it out of your hands and get on to the next transaction.
Yeah, that's what you if you watch you watch, I think more. DC probably watches a bunch too.
Sure.
But you guys are the 2 guys that I figure in the group watch the most of those. I like I said, I like to watch a few here and there. I don't want to get sucked in that rabbit hole because you find people that have a good chunk of money just still don't know cards. Mm-hmm. And that comes off pretty clear as day in one of the ones I had just watched. But yeah, you hear that all the time. It's like, well, this is a questionable, maybe a Deshaun Watson. Right now, people are probably real cool. Beckett had the old hot and cold list. I believe Deshaun would be old number 1 on that cold list. So people are probably looking to move him at anything right now just because of the unknown factor. You get a Mirror Gold auto patch out of Panini Certified, the 25. Okay, guess what? You got it 5, went up to 11. Now it's down to 6, and you're like, well, I can get 5 or 450. Would you rather clear that from your repertoire of cards and get something you want, or do you want to hold on and hold out hope? There's not a lot of hope with the flippers. That's why everything's flipping in usually under 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Because they want that money. They want something. They want bigger, better, more valuable. Something that can bring them something even bigger, even better, even more valuable. That's, again, why they're called flippers. So that'll always be something that doesn't really resonate with me, but it's always interesting to see that part of the hobby. It's not something I enjoy, but to have that mentality and just go through and you hear these people talking about comps, what they got. They're more or less it's a very fragmented hobby journey because all
Mhm.
this stuff is usually in their hands under 60 days.
Yeah.
So it's like some of them, I just got this at this last table. Hey, I really want an Aaron Rodgers Chrome PSA 9. Got it for a grand. Now I'm going to this next, or 2 tables later, trying to sell for 11 or make a trade or do something. But I don't know. It's interesting to me because you hear him say, well, this is something he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Obviously, I mean, that's not even allegedly. He'll be in the Hall of Fame, not the Packers Ring of Honor if things continue the way they do. But it's like, what are you saying? Is Peyton Manning a good quarterback? I don't remember anybody else saying that. Is this news to me? It's not saying, this is the card I want. It's what's the Topps Chrome Rodgers. It's a nice card. I'd rather have an SP Authentic, an Exquisite, an SPX even. Something numbered, even a late Leaf Limited. Because again, that's numbered. I know that's going to be a specific amount.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about pop reports into the upper hundreds or thousands when the card is numbered to 199, 299, 150, whatever the case may be. And I know those things aren't floating around like the Topps Chrome or the Topps or even the Topps first edition. Still though, it just, when people have a different note list than I do of like criteria with cards, I find it interesting and frustrating at the same time, especially when you see in some of these videos them like instantly change within 2 minutes of their vlog. It's like, man, I really want to get a rookie card of this guy. What would you take on this? Or what would you're interested? What would you offer? It's like, you just said you really wanted that card. I couldn't do that. Like, I got this brochure in. 10 minutes after it arrives in the mail, I'm posting on Instagram and Blowout and Facebook. Hey, how much? I'm selling this for 900. Who's going to offer up? Who's going to pony up?
Yeah, but you're talking about two different objectives, Dave.
Oh, I know.
If you're, yeah, but one thing though that plays into that will help kind of clarify this piece, because you said one thing where it's about the understanding is that part of the reason is such short time spans is that holding doesn't make you any money.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the card appreciates or not, you only make money on the sale.
Yep.
The purchase is the part of the transaction that initiates it, but the sale is the part that completes it. So even in that Sasha example, it wasn't a $19,000 transaction. It was a $1,000 transaction. From beginning to end, it was $1,000 because you paid $18,500, but then you sold it over there for $19,500. The second half is what made the $1,000. Otherwise, all you did was shuffle money from one side of the table to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Because in reality, his objective was to get out of the card within the hour or within a couple of hours at that show to collect the 1,000. Because when you rack up enough of those thousands or 500s over the course of a weekend, that's your real take. Whatever cash you came in with, if you come with a slightly bigger stack because of those 500 and thousands, that's the real thing. So you left with some cards, yes. You came with some cards, yes. But what was the end result? Mm-hmm. The end result was you came with 100 cards, you left with 95 cards, net difference of 5, not a big deal. But you shifted enough stuff over the course of the weekend that you came with 100 grand and you left with 120.
Yep.
That 20 is the real number. That's the important piece. Otherwise you could be sitting with 100, but you didn't actually make any money. It's like none of us work for free. So in that instance, when Sasha's doing his thing, he's actually working at that show. It's not like the Brodeur. The Brodeur, you can hold it indefinitely because it's a collection piece. You can just, whether it goes up or down, it doesn't change anything. That's why whenever somebody talks about it, it's like, oh, my collection's gone up so much in value. It's like, your collection hasn't gone up in value. It's gone up on paper. If you sold it, then yes. But until you sold it, it's actually, you have cardboard. That's all you've got. You got cardboard and plastic holders. That's all you have right now.
And an expense for that matter.
Yeah. You put money in. Yep. Maybe, should you decide, you can take some money out of that bottomless pit that you threw it into and perhaps collect some of it back. Maybe even come out with a little bit more than what you threw in. but only after the transaction is over. So within that 45 minutes, Sasha T manufactured $1,000 out of thin air. Because that card didn't leave the floor. It stayed physically on the premises, and $1,000 magically appeared.
And that another thing too, I wonder with some of these guys that are famous, how many of the other dealers, let's say you're not
Allegedly.
allegedly, how many of these dealers would do that deal? Maybe they're not the big money guys that people have heard of, people see all the time, that have some sort of social media online presence. Maybe they're just getting sort of into stuff. Like, you know what? I've had this collection for 15, 20 years. You know what? I've a lot of it's graded already. I don't have to sit there and do that. There's money to be made. Still, even with little the dip, freak nasty, it doesn't matter. There's still a ton of money out there to be made. I'm gonna go to the Dallas show, and so then you make your Instagram page or whatever. Maybe you put up a TikTok channel, you put up a YouTube channel, you do something to get your name out there, but you don't have followers. You don't have that presence. Would you, some of these guys that are so desperate to build themselves up and just do a deal, even if it didn't make sense, with some of these bigger names, just to be on a vlog, just to have that one mention of, oh, this is toilet flower cards out of Laramie, Wyoming. Go sub to him. And
Could you create a toilet flower cards account? Because that would be phenomenal. I think you should sell as toilet flower cards.
You better go grab it now, Dave, before somebody takes it.
Now's the time. Toilet flower cards, forget about Wyoming. Ely, Minnesota, you say. Allegedly.
So, I mean, that's something in this day and age of just wanting to have even if you're not in the spotlight, even if somebody's got glasses on and that reflectivity of that light can come onto you just for that moment. How many people out there would do that just to be in that semi-warm glow of that light?
That's a very intriguing question, Dave. And I really want to push this one to Carlos because I could see him take this a multitude of ways. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give Carlos this spotlight, as I always do, because I appreciate his thought-provoking retorts. In certain situations, I would think that would be the case. In certain situations. Because, a lot of people who are, trying to strive for that, top percentage of royalty as, an influencer or whatnot. There is some quote unquote notoriety, at least to them in their mind for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Could it backfire? That's going to be the question I would pose. In certain situations, could it actually have the adverse effect and shine some sort of negative light on somebody? We always talk about both sides of the aisle. Yeah, we talk about a lot of positives, but we also can talk about the negative aspects because that's the reality. It's not all toilet flower cards and rainbows and sunshine and unicorns. That's not the reality. And so it would be interesting to see potentially how many times that has potentially transpired in hopes to reach that level of notoriety or that, fame, YouTube famous type scenario. We all know Dave is striving to become YouTube famous. He's just, he's a closet influencer. He just doesn't want to come out and say it. We all know that. No, I'm not nixing it. I'm spilling it to the masses.
He has influenced many people to buy closets. Yes.
Yes. Yes. And to increase the number of PCs that they have, 10 million fold.
It's important. Otherwise, how is he going to build the shed that can be seen from space?
So
lofty goals. Lofty goals.
Bobby's building that.
Well, he's building a shed, but you got room there. You could build a shed that can be seen from space too. Don't let him have all the fun. Don't let him steal your spotlight.
Yeah, last
Yeah.
I checked, this was our show, Dave. Don't let him do that to you. Come on.
Use some of that alleged kidney money for something.
Oh, now you got him thinking, Carlos.
Yeah, this is investment. This is hashtag invest advice. Hashtag allegedly. I'll go ahead, Steve.
No, I was going to say, so while he's pondering there to retort,
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear your take on, what kind of Dave alluded to, though.
Yeah. So some of the stuff that you said, you can see it, like Dave alluded to earlier. I do pay attention to it. I can watch a lot of it because I watch it dispassionately. Like, it doesn't bother me what I'm seeing. And like, I really want to convey this, and hopefully I think now that we're in the summertime, I can have a little fun with it. Kind of just like, I've touched on it so many times, but maybe it's a good time to just start flat out just saying it, just so that people I let them read between the lines, and I've made it so obvious, I felt like, but it's like, no, let me be 100% clear. None of this bothers me in any way, shape, or form. If the market goes up, it doesn't bother me. If the market goes down, it doesn't bother me. If the market stays flat, it doesn't bother me. Because I can work with whatever you got. I'm flexible as a collector where it's like, no, I can play with whatever this game is, whatever direction the waves go. When people, storm the targets, I get amused. I want more bloodshed. I'm okay with this. I have fun with it. Because it's a symptom. People doing that is not the disease, it's the symptom. They want money. I understand that. A lot of people do. If there was no money there, they're not doing that. The stuff stays on the shelf. You can go buy it, whatever. Oh, but my kids can't get it. Well, then get them cards a different way. I've suggested a multitude of ways to do that. You can still expose your kids to this without retail product. You can. It's not as much fun as opening a pack and maybe pulling a really cool card. But we made the comment the other day where it's like, what if you went to the bargain bin, found a bunch of shiny cards, and gave it to your little kid who doesn't know any better?
Yep.
They're shiny cards. You could accomplish that for $20 and get a nice little stack of maybe their favorite team or a couple from their favorite player. And guess what? Mission accomplished. And if they tear it up and break it, you're out $20. Who cares? You can probably get a better bang for your buck than you would out of the retail box anyway. So there's the point is, there's more than one way to get from point A to point B. There's a bunch of paths here that can get you where you want to go. Now, talking about the social media thing, basically what we alluded to a second ago. Well, all you need to do is if you do watch these vlogs, and you don't have to watch them as many of them as I do. I'm like, for me, it's a human interest thing. I'm people watching. I'm observing. I don't care about the specific deals they're doing. I don't care about the stacks of cash. None of that matters to me. What I'm paying attention to is how they're doing it, how they're communicating to each other. I'm paying attention to those details. That's the part I'm interested in, because that's where I learn something. Because right now I can't go to card shows yet. When I go to card shows, I'll observe it in person. You're going to see more people with cameras than you've ever seen before. That's going to become the norm for a while until people get bored of it and they stop watching it, and then they'll go away. Everything's a cycle. So you have to let the cycle play out. But all you got to do, if you want to see what happens, which Steve was referring to a moment ago, don't look at Sasha T's Instagram. Don't go look at Sports Card Investor's Instagram, but go look at look at how often they're tagged on images. If you go to Instagram, I met Jeff at the Dallas show. Jeff and Sasha and all these people that are on YouTube are posing with people and it's not them running. It's not, Jeff Wilson isn't running out going, hey, let me pose in a picture with you. But he's not fighting it either because it helps his brand. He's like, no, of course, sure, I'll take a picture with you. Yeah, we'll take a selfie. Sure, why not? It doesn't hurt him.
No.
He'll chat with them for a couple of minutes, they'll be magnanimous. And I don't have any personal problem with the guy. I don't care about him one way or the other. So, and he's very smart to be like, oh, sure, I'll take a second and chat with you, and then I'll be on my way and do my thing. I'm making content too. So you want to take a pic? People jumped like they were protecting him from bullets to get in front of the camera so that they could get some FaceTime with Jeff with the camera right there. It will be the stuff of memes for months. The people that that were kind of hanging in the background, photo bombing, segments of Jeff's recording. People want to be famous even for a second. They want to be able to point and say, hey, that's me in that picture. Or that's me as part of the vlog. I'm there. People sticking their head in. You saw that. In a vlog I saw where somebody went out of their way to go to talk to Sasha T. It made me laugh because they went out of their way to talk to Sasha T. And Sasha was talking with Carvin. and Carvin slinked away so he'd get out of the shot. And I was like, because this guy didn't know that it was Carvin that he was talking to, but Carvin just kind of slinked off to the side so he was off the shot. But the vlog is him talking to Sasha T. Carvin was literally standing beside him talking to him right before that guy walked up. It made me laugh. I was like, nice, nice. So I'm going to ping him and go, hey, you're one of the most famous guys in there. When are you going to do your vlog? I've seen you enough of other people's vlogs, Carvin.
Right.
But people want to get their face in. Carvin doesn't need it. The reason he slinked away is because he doesn't care. He doesn't need it.
No.
He's like, I'm doing my thing. The people who know, Sasha's talking to me, not the other way around. So, and perfectly fine. That's perfectly reasonable. And I promise you, Carvin talked his ear off if that's what he wanted. Carvin's that kind of guy.
Yep.
And he'll talk to you if you'd like him to, and if you ping him and reach out to him to the best of his ability where he's got time. Now that he's back out on the road, he's a lot busier most likely. But within reason, he's happy to talk hobby with just about anybody. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be special to speak to him about it if you happen to catch him. But he doesn't need the attention. That's the differentiator. People pose with him, not the other way around.
Well, and he's not seeking it either.
Correct.
I just happened to notice Ty's comment though about price increase of blasters, and I know that's starting to be discussed.
Yeah.
And I know, Carlos, you mentioned it in the chat, in our chat, that
going up $10.
That they ended up, there was more details as it pertained to the whoever did the article or interview or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm going to be brutally honest. If they double, fine. If they go up 3 times, fine. If they become $100, in that sense, it doesn't matter. From my perspective, at least, would I have a harder time coughing up $100 for a blaster box? Absolutely. Absolutely. However, you up the price, there's less margin for somebody to make in the secondary market.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, I don't have an issue with it, because for most of us, we can't afford hobby right now. And a lot of hobby products still makes it into retail. You just don't have some of the hobby exclusives and so on and so forth. Things are harder to get. But even at a higher price point, to me, yes, it hurts. But I would rather pay that knowing that there's not a chance that I'm going to have to go buy something from a scalper. As we've all said, you want to end the issue and the insanity of high prices on retail. People stop buying it. Stop paying the prices. Mm-hmm. You stop paying the prices. These people can't make their money. They're going to start reducing their prices, and eventually they're going to drop out of the game because the profit margin isn't the same. Mm-hmm. The issue is so many people have the itch, it seems, to want to break product that they're still willing to put up the money for it, just for something to open.
Yep.
That's, to me, I still can't fathom that. Maybe it's because I have more self-control in these situations. If I see something on the shelf, do I pick it up, even if it's something that I normally don't collect? Absolutely, because it's nice to open something. Because, it's been a while. But at the same time, it makes no sense. Okay, I'm speaking for myself. This is me talking here. It doesn't make sense to me as to why people would pay 3, 4, and 5 times for something in which they could technically get themselves if they put forth the effort to go look. It's not that retail can't be located. Sometimes you have to put forth the effort. You can't just go to one store. Yes, is it an inconvenience? Absolutely. But if it's something that you are so hard up for that you have to do for whatever reason, it's like you have to feed the need, put in the work. All these other people are putting in the work. That's how they're scoring so much product. They're going to 15, 20 different Walmarts and Targets. Now, it's different since they put, restrictions on stuff. And I mean, Target has pulled the stuff off the shelf and only selling it online. But, all of these changes have happened because of the freaking complete lunacy that is transpiring. I was cracking my butt off when DC sent the freaking video about the doors opening at a Target or a Walmart or whatever that was. But like you, Carlos, I'm sitting there going, I was expecting, freaking 100 people, not just, 6 or 7, 10, whatever. And I was expecting some fisticuffs to take place or something.
It's a tremendous disappointment. It's a constant disappointment. I don't ask for much, Steve. Like I like to think I'm a very reasonable man. All I ask is for death.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want. I don't feel like I'm asking for too much. Guys, you're America. Your Second Amendment right says thou shalt shoot thy neighbor or something like that. Whatever. The point is guns. The point is guns. You've got enough of them. Let's go. Do I have to order the pay-per-view? Like, let's go. Damn it, people.
So, Carlos, are you trying to make fun of us Americans? Is that what you're alluding to?
No, I'm encouraging you. I am encouraging. I am advocating for. I am basically outlining the path forward. This situation will resolve itself.
So DC, I know you'll watch. So I'm going to put out a formal request to you. Find videos or articles related to the same things transpiring in the Canada area in hopes that there is some sort of bloodshed. So we can then switch the roles here.
Listen, I'm rooting for bloodshed here. The problem is it would be hockey sticks, and it takes a really long. Do you know how long it takes you to bludgeon somebody to death with a hockey stick? Not that I would know, but do you know how long it takes to bludgeon someone with a hockey stick? It's hashtag effort, Steve.
3. It's the same amount of licks that it takes to get to the.
If you do it properly, absolutely. But imagine you get one of those synergy sticks and the damn thing snaps. Again, I wouldn't know. But imagine you get there and you're like, give me another one. That's just really annoying, man. Just really annoying.
So, Sanderson, out of curiosity, is that because of your fondness of the 90s, or did you just decide that there was no enjoyment out of opening packs for yourself and just focusing on cards to pick up or sets or whatever? I'm just kind of curious, because 90s, I probably opened more product in the 90s than I did in any other decade of card collecting, for that matter. But I didn't stop opening product because of the lack of retail or the high prices of hobby. I did it for the enjoyment, but also in hopes to pull a big card. And then, of course, one of two things. Either keep it for whatever reason because of it being an iconic type player or an iconic card, something along those lines. Or, of course, turn around and sell it so I could put money in something else. For me, it was a losing art form to consistently buy stuff and turn around and sell stuff that you didn't want. I mean, there's very rarely a break-even point, at least for me. Maybe I was just unlucky, which is a possible thing too. I know, Dave, you probably opened quite a bit in the 90s. Carlos, my assumption is you probably did as well.
Yeah, it was mostly convenience, just because I had the store right there, and it was just you're hanging out there. You may as well open product. I would say the biggest differentiator today is just because as a player collector, I'm so laser focused on what I'm doing. It's not like if I really wanted to open a bunch of product, I probably still could, and I could probably get my hands on it, but it diverts funds away from other pursuits. So it's a math problem. It's like, look, there's one bucket. All the money for the cards come out of the same bucket. However you want to divide it or subdivide it or do whatever with it, it's the same bucket. The bucket isn't getting bigger. Whatever I take out of it, there is nothing else to replace it until the next time around there's something to replace it. Boxes and packs take out of that bucket. I'm willing to do occasionally here and there, but like it's got to be right time, right place.
Gotcha. Oh, and Sanderson, thanks for answering, because it's one of those in which I'd like to hear other people's thought process in certain situations. based on what we're discussing at the time. And I mean, I put in the chat, that I completely understand the mindset, which is a lot of the reason as to why I stopped. Yes, there's enjoyment there for me, but I wasn't doing it for the enjoyment early on. Now, when I have an opportunity to open packs, whether it be blasters or hangers or anything, it's purely for enjoyment because I do enjoy opening packs of cards. And not to mention, I'm a set collector. So depending on what I'm opening and if I can find something in more of an abundance, then that gives me more opportunity to, add cards to ultimately finish the sets. What's going on, Cardi C?
Chris.
So I appreciate you responding and providing that insight. I definitely do appreciate it. So,
Yeah, back in the 90s, again, everything was so much more readily available. It wasn't, okay, you had a brick and mortar or, well, not anymore, but Target, Walmart. You had convenience stores, gas stations, drug stores. Like we had a Ben Franklin up here in Ely. It had a ton of cards in it, and you had toys there. You had like sewing supplies. You had gardening stuff. You had tools. Basically, just like a mom and pop shop. But I mean, in Ely, you could have what would it have been 3, 4, like 6 places in town in like the mid 90s that you could get cards from. The Holiday Station, the Lucky 7 gas station. There's a Pastica's Furniture that had in the back, we didn't even know about it. They had 4 or 5 boxes of cards. It's like, well, crap, now we got to go here and clean them out. The Ben Franklin. Pomida was the first place I bought, and that was way back in the 80s, like the 86 Topps football. But then James Drug had him as well, and Martinetto Drug. So, I mean, within just like a 2-block span, you had 3 or 4 places, and then the other 2 were on the other side of town. So, I mean, it didn't matter when or where. You could pick up basketball, hockey, football, baseball, and I mean, there's an abundance. Plus, you had how many products and the price point. You weren't spending 10, 15, 20 bucks a pack or 500 or 1,000. It was usually that top end pack was like $4 or $5 maybe for that Topps Chrome 98 when it came out. It was like $4 maybe, 5.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
But other than that, it was like $2, $3. That when you know SP, it's like, okay, SP is a good brand, obviously. We didn't have like Select Certified up here, but at the same time, anything else you could find, it wasn't like now where it's like Inspector Gadget and Scooby Doo, and you're trying to use all these clues, and you can't find anything anywhere. And it was more fun too, because again, the variety. We circle back to the 90s. We're mostly insert type folks. That all that technology, it resonated with us. It was all new. It was all exciting. It was all fun, different. I mean, you go from just playing Topps cards when people are just with like bats, or you see somebody getting ready to have a face off. It's like, yeah, I've seen those pictures a million times, but now it's Dufix foil. Now it's a die cut. Now it's a hollow view. It's like, wow, this is Fractor. What is this you say? So you open up that, again, Pandora's box, and everybody wants to jump in. It's like a train of people ready to jump in on Pandora's box.
And yet somehow Dave finds a way to circle back to a reference that I thought we negated earlier.
Just when we thought we got out of Pandora's box, Dave dragged us right back in.
But
it makes you wonder what Dave is thinking.
I try not to. As a matter of personal policy, I try to practice what I preach and try not to put myself in deep, dark places that make me shake my head.
Wise, very wise.
Yes, but at the same time, we could also say it could be interesting to try and dive deep into Carlos's mind, though, too, and that could be deadly.
Well, I know that is a deep dark place. I'm already familiar with it.
Yes, and that's not allegedly either.
No. Do I need to explain why I asked for death?
No. No, that would take another hour, I would think. And,
Correct, yes.
We may not want to go down that route.
That would merely scratch the surface and merely be the beginning of Pandora's box, since apparently everything's Pandora's box.
Okay, Carlos, it's compared to Pandora's box. Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pulling my inner Carlos and correcting said statement. I need to stop.
I like to think of that as foreshadowing. They will find a way to just make the whole thing Pandora's box. The Instant Revolution podcast going live from Pandora's box is like, wait, what? No. How did we end up inside the box again?
Yeah, we need to find a way to get out of Pandora's box, obviously.
Well, I'm gonna take a theory. I think I'm gonna try alcohol to see if it helps me take my way out of the box. I'll be right back.
All right, no worries. I've had my limit of 2 this evening. So tertiary, or well, no, because mine was the first. Carlos showed his. It'll be his secondary alcohol. So I guess this is the tertiary non-alcohol sponsor.
Okay, some market side strawberry lemonade.
Pretty damn good too.
I don't drink anything with any strawberries. I had a strawberry pop when I was in like 6th or 7th grade. Worst hives I could ever imagine.
Well, that just means you're allergic to them.
Yes, I on that then. They were probably the size of like softballs. I mean, if you flattened out a softball, there's a few that were just itchier than all get out. So
yeah, that wouldn't be fun at all.
But to button up on the card ripping of the 90s, and plus you had friends. One collected Elway and Barry Sanders. Another one collected all the Cowboys. I collected Favre and Natron. Another one collected like Bledsoe, Jerry Rice, and like the rookie receivers and running backs. So Falk, J.J. Stokes, Westbrook, and then Terrell Owens, Keyshawn, and Terry Glenn. But it'd be easier to trade that way. I said, okay, you got a will to win Favre. I've got the will to win Elway. Swap heads up. Boom, done. We don't have to sit there and dicker around for 20 minutes and add like a $5 card. It's just like, you want that? I want this. Okay. Easy enough. And so that was a fun part. Getting your card by said friends was not a fun part.
Well, like you said, I mean the amount of places you could go, of course. Mm-hmm. Early on, there really wasn't a designator between retail and hobby.
Yep.
A hobby shop sold basically what you could get in the retail shops, for that matter. And then of course things started changing and shifting to where it was like, oh well, maybe we should start differentiating these and doing hobby exclusives and things along those lines, which adds to, I don't want to say adds to the collectability, but adds to the aura of the collecting aspect, I guess.
The chase of collecting.
That's a good choice of words. I'll agree with that. Because I mean, for the longest time, even when I would go to the card shop, you'd buy Topps or Fleer Ultra, whatever it was at the time, but you could still get them in, Albertsons, Target, Walmart, drugstores, whether it be Eckerd. Eckerd's no more, but at least not here where I live. But, it's one of those that it didn't matter where you go, you could find them. Mm. It was only, later on, of course, where you, like I always said, you had the differentiation between hobby and retail. And what was cool in certain situations is if you had, hobby inserts, but then you also had retail inserts, whether it be a combined set type situation or you had the variations. And if you were a set collector, yes, it it increases the checklist, so to speak, but it at least adds to the chase to work towards completing those sets. So it does, add some quote unquote collectability to it though too. So
You need a couple more digits, Vinny. You're on the right track, but you need a few more digits. I don't
At
see enough
least-
digits there.
At least 3 or 4 more.
Correct. The other thing is once they started adding retail, it was basically just a cheap way of getting you buying more packs. Because the base cards were basically the same. It was like, oh, get the retail exclusive this, that, or the other thing if you want to get your player or whatever. And it's like, but I already completed the set, but you don't have the retail exclusive insert, do you? So you need to buy more packs so you can have doubles of crap you don't need.
which is why they were printed into oblivion.
It's like, you bastards. That's brilliant. I'll take a box.
Yep. Yeah, and like Sanderson, of course, alluded to, everybody, every rookie had, 20 different copies and overprinting, but to a certain degree, that's what they're doing nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
They're printing stuff to oblivion. The only difference is they're adding manufactured scarcity with all the parallels and the serial numbering.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
But here's the thing, and kind of playing to Sanderson's comment, though. Okay, so Hall of Fame rookie cards are worthless. I agree with you. What's the problem? See, if that's true, then you should be able to get them as many as you want, as cheap as you want, right? That is what worthless would mean. So if you wish to simply have... Somebody made the comment, it might have been Sanderson, it might have been somebody else, so they said, it ruined collecting or something like that. And I said, well, collecting, if all our cards are worthless, it doesn't ruin collecting. If you don't want to collect, it ruins collecting. That's it. That's why I said, like, the pricing has no impact on my collecting or not. It impacts my ability to buy certain ones, but then there's other stuff to pursue, and there's other cards to pursue. There's the past, there's the recent present, there's the future, there's whatever. If you just want to collect the stuff, you can still collect the stuff. If you want to open product and potentially pull something that's more valuable than what you open, well, then this sucks for you. But if that's your objective, well, then that's not exactly collecting. It sort of is, but then you've already built in the flipping idea into your premise. If you wanted to open the packs to get the cards and that was it, then if they're worthless, then you don't care. And all the manufacturer would have to do to give you what you want is to print it into oblivion officially without any qualifications. Get rid of the parallels and give you 50 billion Zions. They're all $1 now. Now, are you happy? You can have as many as you like. You can have them as wallpaper on your wall. Are you happy now, or are you upset for a different reason? Now my cards are worthless. I thought you said you wanted the cards. We gave you as many as you wanted. You're drowning in them. Now you're complaining about that.
Well, I'm curious to know if Sanderson, though, is more alluding to the 90s from, the mindset of the Hall of Fame rookie cards, being worthless.
No, for sure.
Because in a lot of sense, a lot of them are.
Yep.
Let's be real. Because they were printed into oblivion. But what's interesting is, at least in the current market, what we would consider those cards that fall into the junk wax era, which is the early 90s, some of those cards, there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands, but yet they're still selling for thousands of dollars, and you're sitting here scratching your head and you're going, okay, wait a minute. I understand the concept of supply and demand. If there's thousands out there, help me understand why these cards are selling for thousands of dollars. Well, in that sense, obviously there's enough people within that time span who, take up the demand, who want those cards and are willing to pay said price. It's just so much of this is so intriguing and is so, I don't want to call it random, but it's sometimes it seems like it should be the opposite. Overproduced cards that are, that were a dime a dozen for the longest time should still be a dime a dozen. Okay, maybe, 20 cents a dozen, but you get where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
The substantial spikes that you've seen on some of those, it blows my mind. And you look at, and I'm not taking away from like a Lemieux or, in the caliber of player that he was, or a Yager, or, Brett Hull, or any of those guys from a hockey perspective. But you look at, for instance, Terrell Davis, my guy. His graded rookies have not spiked through the freaking roof at all. There was a time in the late 90s where Denver was on their run. They had won their 2 Super Bowls. He rushed for 2,000 yards. You couldn't smell a box of Select for less than $650. And that's pretty substantial because there was no product at that time that was really that high priced. But yet, you look at a Mirror Gold PSA 10. Yes, it is a rookie variation, but that card hasn't spiked to $1,000, and he's Hall of Fame. And there's a crap ton of them. I won't say printed into oblivion, but there's a crap ton of them. PSA 10 regular select rookie. There's a crap ton that are graded. Probably quite a few PSA 10s. I've never bothered to look at the pop report because I don't care. But $100. I just the swings are what is so intriguing to me between like a hockey and a basketball and baseball and football. They're so just all over the map. So, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and we've said it before. There obviously had to be some sort of market correction for some of the stuff that was just so dirt cheap for so long. But like that O-Pee-Chee Premier, that 9091, where was available forever and a day for reasonable prices, and now all of a sudden everything. I mean, I came back down a bit, but I mean, I remember showing, I think Carlos, I don't even remember when it was, January. There's like a Brett Hull PSA 10 that sold for an absolutely astronomical amount. Now, again, I'd like to see that it was a true sale.
Yeah.
It was a 4-figure, super strong 4 figures for Brett Hull. It's not a rookie. It's second or third year.
His rookie was 88, so yeah.
It's just like, that makes it 0 sense. I wouldn't even care if the pop was 1. That number, and I want to say it was close to $7,000 for that.
It was high.
It makes 0 sense. None. Where it goes from probably a year or two earlier, that's probably like a $50 card, $40 card to that. So should there have been a correction or some adjustment on the pricing over the years instead of just finding everything in that 4 for $1 or $1 box? Yeah. But do you go from a Yager PSA 10 maybe getting 100, 150 up to 4 figures? That's a bit of a jump. So
sorry, David, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's literally like a lottery. It's like, what card this week is going to have the bump? Just pull it out of country of origin, Mike Madonna.
Listen, I'll have you know that per recent comps, it is worth at least 3 times what a Maryland is. That's what recent comps say. Very recent comps. And it's worth 5 times what a Brodeur is, according to recent comps. 5x.
Yeah, I was going to say, Carlos, use the right terminology. 5x.
5x. That's right.
But 4 or 4 times the goat.
Yeah. But
I was going to say,
Sanderson has the right point, though. It's, how. Granted, I know Madonna is worth more than $1. But, why is it that Madonna, Hall of Famer, sells for so cheap, and then you have these guys that are still, quote unquote, unproven, selling for thousands.
Yeah.
But right, I'm just going to throw this out there. It's all about what's hype right now, anyways. And for those who are seriously looking at ways to improve their collection by adding certain Hall of Fame players or whatever, there was a time in which that was advantageous to do so.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that has passed, as we've all alluded to. However, as the market continues to go in correction mode, which, is going to continue to happen, we're already seeing it. It's going to continue to happen. Outside of like your top tier big cards that are still going to sell for high dollars and so on and so forth, you may start seeing a softening on some of those though too. But it's one of those in which I even put in the comments, I agree with that assessment, but it's all about what's hot right now. Mm-hmm. And the majority of people right now, what is new, latest, and greatest? It's the whole FOMO aspect. Oh, I didn't get a chance to freaking buy into, RJ Barrett type situation, or, Zion or Ja, or who is it now? Edwards and Ball.
LaMelo.
So it's like, it's what's hot. It's what's hot now, because that's the stuff that people are wanting. Mm-hmm. And from a pricing perspective, that's where you're also seeing a lot of the more ups and downs in the trends. It seems like it fluctuates a little bit more because of the amount of transactions and the amount of movement. But that's because that's what people want.
Yeah. That's definitely a big part of it, because that's the demand piece of the supply demand curve. That's always a big part of it. But I always laugh because I'm always very honest in my assessment with Dano. I never play it up to be more or less than what it is. I always put him at his proper level contextually with the rest of the sport. But the thing is that I have a dozen of the O-Picchu Premier Medano. I have a PSA 10. I even have a KSA 10 because I thought it'd be funny. I sent it in for grading myself when I was at the show. I just went in handed, and I knew it would get back a 10. I got the 10 back. I got it in a little case. As far as I'm concerned, it's worth more, maybe like $1 more than it is raw. But the point is that I've got it in all these. I've got multiple copies. I can hold a whole stack of them here. The reason they're not worth anything is because I can have a stack of them, a literal stack. I can wallpaper my walls with Medano and Picchu Premier rookies, and barely put a dent in the population. And you can still have as many as you want. It's not the quality of player that's the issue. Yes, if it had been... The problem is we don't have an apples-to-apples comparison, even if we wanted to try to have one. Medano does not have a Cup RPA rookie. It doesn't exist.
No.
If Mike Medano had a Cup RPA rookie in his day, the equivalent of that, it would be worth more than $1. How much more? We don't know. It would depend. It would depend on the situation and the time and play. But would it be worth a little bit? Yeah. You know when it would have peaked? Probably around 1999. It would have been a pretty hot item around 1999. And it would have also had a little peak around 1993 when he scored 50 goals. And as he became the all-time leading American goal scorer, it probably would have had another little peak. You would have seen this big peaks and valleys throughout the course of his career and all that. The stuff you're going to see with the modern players today. But the thing is that, okay, so if you go to a lot of the current players, Nathan McKinnon, the reason they're so expensive is because he's a great young player, tons of upside. His team looks like they're pretty good, so it could work. You always have to bring in the pro set. That I could line my wall, Dave's wall, a couple of walls in his warehouse, Steve's house from here. We could do a trail leading a pro set all the way over to Texas, and still have millions left over. That will just leave at Brian Gray's house. But he can use them in his buyback product. It'll be great. But the problem is they just made so many. It's just so many. It's not that you'll take a lot of these young guys. They may eventually become great players. They may eventually become Hall of Famers. That's all possible. And if so, that'll justify the prices somewhat. But at least some of them have cards that are somewhat limited. Medano has 9 official rookie cards at PSA, including their set original. None of them are limited. The closest thing is the Bowman and Topps Tiffany, and those aren't rookies. They're rookie parallels, so to speak. But at least they have a cap. At least they have a limit.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider those to be the top tier rookie-ish cards of his time because at least they're limited to 5,000. If you get a nice copy, at least there's something with the Tiffany version, so that's cool.
So Paul, and I know that Dave highlighted it earlier, but that I don't even have words. I know Sanderson just did the bunch of ha 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 as if laughing his ass off, which I agree. But that is borderline like insanity. So Paul, you need to ask him. So how many of those have you actually sold, or are you just trying to make a joke? Because somebody should pay. He should be paying somebody $5 to take those cards off his hands for kindling.
The real shame is that 91, there aren't as many good players in it. The 90-91 is the loaded rookie class. I would love Medano has a Pro Set Platinum card, but it's a second year card. At least Pro Set Platinum, it's overproduced. It's a nice. I actually like the pictures, the full bleed photo on it. I think it's a nice looking set. Like I said, I love to make fun of Pro Set, as we well know, but I think the set's nice. It's not worth crap, but I think it's nice for what it is in the era and everything. Overproduced as it is, I think if they had had some restraint, I bet you those Pro Set Platinums would be sought after cards if they had held some restraint in the printing press. Because actually these look pretty good. Yeah, actually they look pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got eye appeal. I won't disagree with it. Same thing on the football perspective too.
Yeah, because Favre has a Pro Set Platinum rookie.
Yes,
and if they had held back on the printing press, I think that would be one of his nicer rookies. I think it's a nice looking card with the image and everything. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But they printed plenty of them. They didn't stop. They couldn't help themselves. They're like, you called it platinum. Why didn't you hold back a little bit?
Because they used platinum presses and they didn't know how to restrain the press.
But that's the thing. Like, they made so much stuff anyway. If they could have just held off on that one, it would have been the anomaly. It would have been that one random set that somehow, it would have been like 1990 Leaf, which is still pretty well produced, but at least it feels like it's a little scaled back compared to all the other 1990 sets. At least comparatively, it feels a little more scaled back. It's still available, plentiful. It's still plenty. But it's like, no, there's a billion of them. But then for hockey in 91, what is it, like Roenick, Dave? Like Hasek? Trying to think, like 91. Tony Amani, maybe?
I don't know. Where's our hockey guys?
Like the thing is, the rookie crop is not as good. Like compared to 90, 91, like not even close. So it's like, I don't know if you get I don't know if you could get $5 for the set. That might be a little high. I'd talk him down. And it's not a reflection of the set. I actually think it's one of the better ones that Pro Set did. I think it's one of their better efforts.
Yeah, you've got Hasek, Lindstrom, Konstantinov.
Yeah, Lindstrom's good.
Jeff Sanderson, LeClaire, Amante, Doug Waite, Adam Foote.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
it's decent. It's decent. It's not bad. It's not terrible.
But it's not that 90-91 class.
No. The 90-91 class was like super stacked. Like it's hard to top that. So many good players out of that one, and Hall of Famers all over the place. It was ridiculous.
So Paul called most of those.
Yeah.
Juno not in there?
I think he added him in the end, Joe Juno.
Joey Juno.
Yeah, there was a time where Joe Juno was at least a name.
Oh, big name.
That's a good thing though. Like if you have a set that has enough players in it, sometimes there'll be different ones. There'll be different ones that will cycle through and be like have their little moment of shine in the hobby. And it'll just go through the cycle where different players will get their crack at it. And then later on, we can all have a chuckle and go, well, that one didn't work out. That one didn't work out. That one went to the Hall of Fame, and that one also didn't work out.
Yeah, I don't see him listed in there. Let me see if he's a 92, 93, anything.
Always got the Hockey Beckett present. He's at least started keeping it within arm's reach as of late.
It's a good call. It's useful. I will say though, I would prefer. I understand that's why Beckett did it that way, but I will say I wish that they had that they did it chronologically because it is a bit of a pain sometimes finding certain issues. Because sometimes they'll be like, okay, it's upper deck. Oh no, it's UD, and I'm like, you worthless sack. Like, stop it.
Yep.
Pick one. Make my life easier. Like, I shouldn't have to struggle to figure out which section of this alphabetically it is when it's alphabetical.
Perfect timing again there, Carlos, with the hitting the microphone.
I do what I can.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. No, again, you'd think it'd be. I'm looking in the upper deck. 91, 92, 92, 93.
What, for Joe Juno?
And again, it's everybody's listed, so it's not like it's. There we are. Well, see, it's got to be 91, 92 something. Because it just has like. There must be a rookie review or something in upper deck. Unless he's got a series 1. That would be the number in there.
I'm seeing both 91, 92, and 92, 93.
Yeah, I think 92, 93 looks like the winner here. I'm using the online version just to see if I can find it. Just to see.
Yeah, because there's like a 91, 92 Parkhurst.
Yeah, that's
and I'm on eBay.
234, Dave, for 91, 92 Parkhurst. He looks like he's one of those guys who just made it out of Parker's and Parker's French that year. At least for rookies. So there you go. Juno's only got one rookie.
So then, of course, but then you have 92, 93 who starts coming into stuff, and you've got star rookies and ultra rookies and star rookies in upper deck. It's like, okay, which one is it?
And I will say in the same vein again, overproduced era, 91, 92 Parkhurst is actually a decent looking set. I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was a decent set. Again, overproduced. I wish they had held back a little bit, but nice looking set.
Yes, Paul, we see cough scroll up. Yes, I see it now. He did call it while we were sitting here looking.
Yep.
So as we're coming up on the 2-hour 45-minute mark, wanted to kind of position it to the chat. Any topics? Anybody wants to cover any questions that you may have for any one of us? It's always open-ended. There's no questions that are off limits normally. I'll put in that little small caveat normally. So there may be some limits to what we'll answer, but for Sanderson, Sanderson coming and hanging out for the majority of the show. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Hopefully we see you more frequently. But since this is one of the first shows that you've been here, we try and cap at 3 hours. Sometimes we go a little over, but this is about the time in which we try and open it up for any questions or any topics that anybody wants to cover off with any of us before we wrap up for the evening. So all the other guys know the routine. Unfortunately, last week we didn't get to do that since we had YouTube issues. At least on the playback, we didn't run into any issues, which was kind of nice. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to think of anything, throw anything in the chat that you can think of. Carlos, anything specific for you on tap for Friday?
Not at the moment. I think probably a little bit of the fallout from the Dallas show A lot of the observations we talked about, we may elaborate on a little bit of that. Usually, part of the dynamic, and we'll see. Usually, Bobby's around, so we'll see if he wants to pop on. So usually, it's never been like an official co-hosting thing, but he's always got an open invitation, as do the rest of you guys and anybody else. We'll see if I eventually do open it back up again, but I kind of like having a controlled list of contributors, so to speak. But we'll see how it plays out. Again, this summer, I knew things would slow down a little bit, especially in hobby-wise. I do like, though, seeing a little bit of Fallout, and I'll keep an eye on some of those vlogs and things to see if anything else catches my eye. And I kind of do want to make a video on some of the negotiation tactics we'll see. I've been enjoying them. Like I said, for me, observationally, I want to see if I see some of that when I do get back to shows. I was like, I want to see you do that and be like, are you sure, though? Is that what the last comp said? I think I saw a comp that was like 1.5 times that amount. You might be getting screwed over. Are you filming this? Oh my God, you're going to get so much hate. Imagine the thread on Blowout, bro. The thread on Blowout.
There you go, Sanderson. I was going to say, he pulled out the freaking hockey Beckett annual. Wasn't that good enough?
Over there. Bunch.
And I thought I was unorganized.
See, the thing is with the amount of stuff that Dave brings in, it's like, so that is live coverage from the ComC warehouse. You're wondering why it's taking you so long to get your stuff. It's like, Dave, are you going to sort the piles? Oh, I'll get to it later. Yeah, I hope Vlad Guerrero Jr. is a thing again. He is tied for the league lead in home runs. And I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. I may have a stack of about 100 Vladimir Guerrero Jr. things where few people will start buying them at the prices that I want. Gone.
Look at this. All the questions for Carlos, really. Well, I guess the Vlad
Justin,
Guerrero
but Justin is a very valid question. He may have gone to AA. You know, the community service was very clear on it. Who knows? Who can say? He may have finally figured out that it's easier to hide off in the shadows than it is to get randomly disconnected by me when I'm in the mood.
Randomly disconnect, allegedly.
Well, it's random when I do it. It's not a question of if I'm going to do it. It's a matter of when. It's a matter of when.
Now, Sanderson, I wouldn't go to the extent of saying a great man. That may be pushing it.
Yes.
I'll give you adequate, man, Dave. With the correct verbiage that we have been known to use, I will give you adequate. Yes, I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable.
So sticking with the Carlos nomenclature, okay, I like it. I got it in.
I think
I got it in.
You got it in. Look at you. But I think that's fair. I think that's quite fair.
I don't disagree. I will accept that. Yes, adequate. I will accept it. Absolutely. I will definitely take that. But I was hoping to get the word in for the evening. You know, it's been a running joke, it seems, that we always try and get in our catchphrases at some point. Just saying. Dave, you're running out of time, but there is the close, so I can't see who that. I don't know who that is. Is that Thornton?
Is that Patrick Marleau?
Yep.
Oh, see.
Yeah.
I
got the number 12. I couldn't actually read his name. I was like, San Jose Sharks number 12. I think that's Marleau. Literally just grabbing off a random pile of crap, eh, Dave?
Yeah,
Nope,
stuff he hasn't shown.
Well, this one I haven't shown. It just came in today. So I got another one of the B Player Ultimate, so that's numerology.
Okay.
Not too bad. I like grabbing these from time to time if they're cheap enough. And there's like, the thing is, Ultimate is a good idea. I like the concept. But doing these Beckett cases was a short-term thinking situation, not a long-term thinking. Like, this makes it a pain in the ass to house a bunch of these. And it's like, oh, these are all limited. Yes, they are. Like, this is out of 24. It is pretty limited. But it's still going to cost you $20 because it's still a jersey card. It doesn't matter when you put it. Yeah, it's in a lovely case. It's $20.
I know.
You're not going to overpay for that. Calm down.
Yes, unfortunately, I have nothing to show that's new. I've already shared mine on Instagram, and I didn't really want to spoil it because then that'll ruin my monthly pickup video. But since everybody's showing something new, and for those who don't follow me on Instagram, that is the only pickup to date for May. Upper
Nice,
Deck
nice.
jersey patch. So patience does pay off from time to time. Just throwing that out there. That
That is
card's been
valid.
on my radar for a long time.
Oh, is that Roberto Longo?
DiPietro.
Oh, DiPietro, sorry.
I remember, let's say that year, or because I don't remember if that was the year with Kovalchuk.
I think that's Patrick Stefan, or no?
No, Stefan was 99
No,
2000.
you're right. You're right. That's true.
Because I've got a bunch of his stuff, but
You know what? I think it might have been Danny Heatley, so it might have been the same year as Kovalchuk. I think Danny Heatley had one of those, if memory serves me. I think you'll like this one, Dave. Check out the patch, though, if you can see the Phil Housley patch.
oof, that's got a lot of color.
Yep.
That's
That's a 2 of 2.
nice.
That's a
That's
2 of 2.
nice. Wow.
Yeah, so there you go. There's your go you guys, USA.
Now, do you have the 1 of 2 now, Carlos?
I've been known to do that. I have been
know.
known to do that.
That's why I asked the question.
No, listen, I like some of Brian Gray's stuff, but it's like I'm not gonna do that all the time. But I will say, when I saw the patches on that one, I was like, all right. So I've got that one, and I'll save the other one for later. But I might have 4 different versions of that card now,
The one you just showed?
including the one I just showed. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So because they did a bunch of different numbering systems on those, I'm not trying to do the rainbow, but if it falls in my lap, like I've got the 2 of 2, and I've got a few of the other rarer pieces. If I find the 1 of 1, then we're good. Because that one, at least they only have 1, mercifully, instead of 2.
I was going to say, unlike the last one that you had had to deal with 2 101s.
Well, I have the I will say that in the playing days part of the collection, I have most of the stuff now, which is great, and I'm right at a little above 50%. The post playing days has been so inflated by things like Leaf, like it's stupid. I have a 1600 count box that is just be a player in the game in Leaf. And you can tell where Leaf takes over because it's in those one touches.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this stack, this row inside of the 1600 count box, and it like weighs a ton. And I'm like, I hate everything you people do. They look nice. They're really nice cards, but a whole stack of them is that rainbow of that signature one. And I'm like, how dare you?
Yeah, when they hit a home run or score a hat trick, as it were, for hockey, they do a really good job. But when
They're nice cards. Yeah, they're really nice cards.
when they swing and miss, it's a bad swing and miss. But there's some nice stuff, and again, if you can get past, like on that card, I think I saw all 4 faces.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the people have just the jerseys or the sweaters, and that's where you'll have like a sweater, a person, a sweater, a person, person, sweater, person. So it's like, well, it depends on the era, especially if you get something from like the 50s or 60s where maybe some of that stuff isn't as prevalent in the hobby world. Then you might be willing to pay a little bit for it. Yeah, when you start getting just a jersey or a sweater up there, it's like, I don't know.
But it's whoever you can get. It's whoever you can get the picture rights for.
Yep.
Because for like the older players, it's like, can you get the estate to agree to allow it?
Mm-hmm.
Because in some cases, the answer is yes. They'll be like, yeah, sure. Because you can't show the NHL logos, but you can. The reason Medano's always on there is because he basically, Brian Gray cut him a check and basically said, yeah, would you let us use your image? And he goes, yeah, sure. So he's like, yeah, fine, whatever. But some players, it's just like, no.
Where's Vinny?
Indeed.
I think he has that one. And last one I'll show.
That's nice looking. Matty
That's what
Ice, though.
I know.
Hmm.
That's one I had looked at for a little while, and I think finally I was going to buy it now, best offer that I felt was decent priced, because the first couple went off at about 30, 35, and like that's far too much for that.
Yep.
To
So
get
playing
it,
to your point. So playing to your point, Dave. So what happens is when they do the really big multiplayer ones is where it messes things up. So that was a 500 gold club,
yep.
7 players on it. So you end up with a couple of sweaters in there amongst the rest of it. So that's like the pink or whatever out of 12. Like I don't even remember all the parallels of this stupid thing. So that's a nice one. But you got Guy Lafleur and you got a bunch of other players. Same card. That's a 2 of 2 as well.
Yeah,
That's
when
a
you
nice looking one, though.
Yeah, you got the patches on this one are really good.
Yep.
So it's nice having the combination when you can put them beside each other, and as you've got the different ones, it's like it looks great.
Yeah.
So they do it. It's a good concept. This one hasn't been filed into the box yet. So this, I actually ran out of room in the box. I got to go get another box for these stupid things because they take up so much damn room.
Sanderson, that was the reason why I was like, interesting. Sanderson wants to know the names on that card.
Yeah, sure. So you got Aginla, Bossy, and Sundin across the top. So Aginla, Bossy, and Sundin across the top. And then you got, I'll read you the bottom here. Sakic, Bobby Hall, Medano, and Guy Lafleur. So that's a great group right there. And the memorabilia pieces for like Bobby Hall, you got a 2-color piece there. Medano's got a nice piece, and the ones across the top are all good. This one I picked out because it is out of 2, but all of them are multicolored, although the Sakic is probably the weakest one in the corner, but all the rest of them are solid.
Yeah.
For such a small swatch piece, they're good.
Yeah, they definitely took advantage of the real estate for the patches.
Yep.
So
when Leaf does a good job with those, it's good. Unlicensed or not, it's a good looking card.
Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
That many players and have that, you can take away from like not having a logo, and then you can accentuate by having a nice patch. So you still, if people sit there and quib about, oh, there's no logos, I'm like, you couldn't tell if it was on there anyway.
Yeah, you can do a lot of damage with. If you are smart with the design of the card, you can get away with a lot. If they're good at designing, a good card designer will be able to be like, I can still make this work.
Yeah.
Completely agree. I'm going to pose one more question, and I'll send it over to Dave to shut her down. I am curious, though, Carlos, how are the mugs working out since you've been using them for a few months now? They still...
I think it's pretty much bang on. It's gone through a lot of wash cycles. I've been very impressed with it. The problem is still remains the same, though. It's that I've got an extra one. I think I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with it. I don't know yet. Because shipping a mug is a pain in the ass. It's like, okay, so how do I do this in a way that it won't damage it? What do I do with it? How do I deal with it? I don't know yet.
Yeah, a crap ton of bubble wrap is about your only option, really.
Pretty much, yeah.
But even that could be suspect because you just don't know.
Yeah. Glassware is a difficult beast, I will say. I don't regret having it though. I love having this thing when I'm drinking out of it. So it's like, it's kind of fun.
Oh, I still remember the unveiling on our show, and I'm over here dying laughing, and everybody's kind of looking at me like I'm freaking, or I'm sure was thinking that I'm like, what the hell is he laughing at? And it took a while for people to catch on to the humor.
The key, like everything else, and this is something hopefully, to bring it full circle, this is something hopefully our vlogging friends will eventually learn. Timing is everything. The delivery is 100% of the thing. You can try to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, but if your delivery's off,
Yep.
I've seen it done well, I've seen it done badly, you got to do the delivery.
100% agree.
And I want to button up the be a player discussion. As crappy as it is to have those BGS labels and the cases, at least, and again, I've seen a lot cracked out. That's for the Ultimate Edition.
Mhm.
If it's still in the holder, at least you still have that tag with some sort of serial numbering on it,
Mhm.
even if the card isn't. So I'm like, that's double-edged sword, Pandora's box, whatever you want to call it.
Jeez. I will say though, we got all of them in.
We did.
We got all of them in. So, A for effort. I was beginning to wonder if it was going to happen. Thank you, Carlos. You opened the door for me, so all I can do is virtually shake your hand and say thank you for the opportunity.
As a hockey player, I am a playmaker in addition to a goal scorer. I can make some passes. Gotta set the man up.
Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, Dave.
You're right on time. Go for it, buddy. Right at 3 hours.
We've reached that 3 hour mark. Thank you for everybody joining us tonight. Again, great discussion, great chat. Like a pretty decent flow to the show. We got our trading subject out of the way, moved on to some more pertinent, actual like real time stuff with the card shows going on and what was going on there, and then just the usual chitter chatter, which always is great. And next week it'll be interesting. This Tuesday night I'll be camping up on Lake Superior, so we'll see how this works out. That's I'll say that there is internet at the little shower station bathroom area. I don't know
Can,
how
can
many.
I can I offer a suggestion, Dave? It's okay for us to have a week hiatus. 41 straight weeks. I'm just saying. 41 straight weeks. And if at all possible, it could be this is also an option. We can talk about that this week since you're going to be out of town. I can run the show. I can bring on somebody. We can still maintain the show like you had Matt fill in for me the one episode way back when. We have options. We can spitball that and have that conversation. You deserve to enjoy some downtime to get away because you need it. We all need it at some point. I'll go ahead and fair warn everybody. We're trying to plan a trip sometime in July. Probably be a good possibility. I won't be able to be a part of the show. But just throwing that out there. But we can talk about it. I don't set yourself on making sure that the show must go on type situation. I don't think anybody will fault us for that by any stretch of the imagination.
This is true, I know, but you could have that Cal Ripken streak.
I've often thought of you as the Cal Ripken of hobby thing, and I was like, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do what I can.
So we'll see what happens next week. It'll be fun no matter what. It always is. Remember, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification dealy bop. Patreon, OnlyFans, Discord, Super Chat, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, EMT,
Wire transfer.
wire transfer, Western Union, money
Well
order,
concealed cash.
well concealed cash, PayPal,
You already said that.
Venmo. I'm making sure.
I gotta
wanna
double
make-
check. I wonder if at the bank I can get free wire transfers. I can wire transfer $1. Just on principle. It's like, you really wire transfer $1? Yes, I did. Specifically because it was free.
direct deposit, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum.
We need your wallet address for that, Dave.
Okay.
Hashtag cryptograph. He'll explain it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I was gonna say. That's all enough for the show. So thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you guys for everything you give back to us, because we try to give back something to you. So remember, well, no. Carlos, Steve, I'm Dave. This has been the Instant Revolution podcast. Remember, collecting, absolutely amazing. The friendships you build while building your collection, it's even better. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.